Hello again. Yes, we do. All right. So let's see. So we got a couple of videos we're going for today. First one that I found that I think is slightly interesting and will make a video on it is this one from Ryan Long. And to be perfectly honest, it's the Boys Cast podcast. It's a clip from there where essentially he's talking about these stats that have been bandied about quite a bit on new stuff that I'm sure you've seen, which is to say, God, there's so much more right wing violence. It's like 76% right wing violence. Is there really more right wing political violence than left wing? I've seen that stat thrown about all over the place now. Something along the lines of like 76% of all political violence is committed by right wingers. Let's see if a comedian in 3 minutes can tell us why that's definitely for sure absolutely the case, and there's no other strange, weird, like statistical anomalies or bias in the reporting or anything like that that might shift that statistical impossibility.
When they were looking at like when they do these stats where they go, oh, look at all this political violence has gone up or down, it's like the things that they're calling political violence is like absolutely nuts.
Yeah, I know.
So this guy sort of
No. That's crazy. That's absolutely insane. There's no way that a news organization would say that because political violence now is like, a hot button issue, they would go out and find some statistics or some studies that for some reason over-report violence as being political. That would be crazy. That would be like them clickbaiting an article. That'd be crazy. That would definitely not happen.
went through a bunch of them. His name is I didn't get his name in the thing. The original sorry.
Something on Twitter.
But
No good.
one was like a homeless man who broke in and attacked a hotel guy that had been like in and out of jail, in and out of like psych wards and stuff like that.
Okay.
And he yelled a slur, so they call that political violence.
Very reasonable.
A lot of them is like.
How's that not? So is that also a hate crime? Like, do they put that in?
Well, apparently they have
people. Genetic Sisyphus.
Hate crime they're calling political violence, and anytime it was like against a Jew, they called it right wing, and it was like okay, but there's left wing like anti.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense. Yeah, so anytime anyone who is at all connected with anything that certain people describe, who just so happen to be on the left politically as right wing, all of the violence they commit is political violence. Of course, yes. I mean, like anyone who's in like a white supremacist skinhead biker gang or prison gang or something like that, all the violence they commit is inherently political. All right. Now, if there's violence by some left wing group, I mean that's non-political, and also it's not violence.
Jew people, you know what I mean?
Lots of right-wing Jews,
and there's lots of exactly right. And then they had that a huge percentage of it seemed to be like jail fights, where they're just like this political violence and
doing some work in the yard.
Yeah, it was like white supremacist group versus like the Latino kings or whatever.
Yeah,
and they're just like well, this is politics violence. You're like jail politics.
Yeah, jail politics. They're fighting over mackerel. I don't know if that counts.
Or who are fighting over who gets to deal the. Be the head drug smuggler in the jail.
Guy. No,
it's a bunch of it was that. And then also they say they do it based on guilty charges, and it was like a lot of the liberal cities they dismiss the crimes or misdemeanors.
I mean, they're not crimes. Obviously, they're not. They wouldn't be just dismissing these things out of hand. That'd be insane. If you were to do that, like your cities would be like hellholes in very short order. And that's, as we all know, American cities are not like that.
Don't count, so it's like those numbers are juked. And then on top of that, they had like a guy that got in a fight with his neighbor, and the neighbor was Mexican. They call that right-wing violence.
Right. Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Right-wing violence.
One was like a a Chinese guy that got in a fight, and then a white supremacist got charged with converting his rifles to automatic.
Yeah.
And you're like, that's illegal, so they called that. And it was like, if
Yeah,
you look up
so
the thing,
yeah.
it was like political violence that has some like aim, political aim, I guess, was and they kind of.
Or I guess it's like, you know,
I mean, this makes sense. Okay, let's put it this way. If you are a person that has a political belief and you commit a crime, that crime is violence against the society that you are living in, and therefore it's political violence. I don't understand why these low IQ chuds cannot understand this. Okay?
picking people based on their political affiliations to like a equivalent of like a political hate crime, I guess. You're like, yeah, it's like based on this category.
Yeah, it's like just all of it means nothing. People just like, here's a list of things is essentially what a lot of these stats are.
Yeah.
So it's very hard to sift through all this shit. You need literally a team of friends that are unpartisan that are actually like sifting through this information to get like a fucking accurate picture of what's happening.
Shit, yeah. But again,
well, because they say there's like political violence is down, and then you look and it was like 2020, and there's just like 2020 is like way lower than these other areas, and you're like,
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, 2020 was like, especially the summer, was really peaceful. It was like, fiery, but it was very peaceful. The fire was just from like, everyone doing like campfires and stuff. A lot of s'mores were made.
like, okay, well, it seemed pretty high there. It's just like based on your eyes, and they're like, your eyes are wrong. Like, there's people right now that the news could, their political version is the news could tell them it's raining, and they go outside and it's like super sunny, and they're just like, why do you have your jacket on? You're like, it's raining, and you go, it's not. They go, I just checked, it is.
yeah.
Rachel
Maddow told me it's raining.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Like that's
Not a lot of critical thinkers out there anymore.
It feels like it.
No, that's crazy. That doesn't make any sense to me. Okay, because obviously no one would throw around like statistics to, prove their point, even if the statistics are bad, even if someone could immediately point out why those statistics don't actually say what they purport to say, why someone would be called a name that really does not apply to them, like, like Nazi or fascist or anything like that. No one would do that. That's crazy. And if you think that that's happening, you're crazy. Let me know what you think down in the comments. Are you crazy? Good luck in all your endeavors. Thank you very much for your time and attention. I'll say farewell for now. All right. That was a quick one. I mean, it was a quick video, so let's make them quick. I'm going to try to make a couple, like, shorter videos as opposed to doing all these other ones, which are just, like, insanely long. All right, so we've got a bunch more videos. I'm actually not sure if we're going to get to this. If we do get to this last one, this is, like, the podcast we have lined up to maybe watch today from Roy Sutherland, who I don't know if I love his economic takes. I do like I like some of them. I do like some of them. I think some of them are reasonable. But I don't know. Like, I mean, he doesn't seem to be like an economist to me. He doesn't seem like someone who's really got as much of a backing in it that I could really take his opinions like to the bank and go, yeah, for sure. He does have really good ideas on sort of like human behavior. He does have a pretty good backing in that. He's got a good foundation there. Marketing, these types of things, it would be understandable if he could like understand a lot of sort of psychology of people as it relates to the economy, but not necessarily like the actual functioning of the economy, where it would be, where it would work and where it wouldn't. That being said, I can always stand to learn more about these people and what their positions are, which is why I've got this lined up. I don't know if we're going to get to it, and if we do get to it, we're almost certainly not going to be able to watch the whole thing, because I tend to like if this is a 2-hour podcast, if it's 2 hours, I tend to like double the amount of time it takes to watch it, which is ridiculous. All right, and then we got this other video, which again has almost nothing to do with the other stuff that I was talking about. All right, if you've watched any of my more recent videos, this one is going to have almost nothing to do with it. except kind of it does, because it's talking about the beauty of things in the past, the things that we've lost that we really shouldn't have. Why did we lose them? That's the question I want in your head as we watch this video on the irreplicable beauty of vintage anime.
You know, it's nothing short of a beautiful wonder to believe that these few frames would give birth to all of this.
Okay, so obviously because you watched that, you're canceled now. That was definitely racist. So I apologize for that. I should have screened this video. That should have been censored. Art is not art. It is political violence. Okay, so just again, we can kind of stop on any one of those frames, and I could pretty much say, and it hurts to say it because I do appreciate the people that are in the industry now, but every single one of those frames is better than anything made today. Yeah, I mean, it hurts to say that because, again, I know the people in the industry are working very hard and are passionate, but stuff was just better then. And this isn't even like my generation. Like, let's just again. Like, does this to me has more interest. This to me has just more cool stuff going on than normal anime that I would see today. This looks pretty good. God, that looks
Dude,
good.
what is it about older anime that looks so nice?
For real,
I think it makes
right?
the soft, fuzzy lines, the monochromatic color schemes, and the beautiful watercolor backgrounds. Tell me you don't want to live there. You're lying.
For
You're
real.
lying. The thing that makes my brain explode with serotonin is easily the bloom. Oh my god, that grainy, blown-out haze. It's easy.
Yeah, I mean, it's very much the sort of like the cyberpunk aesthetic that I think we just completely can't stop loving. It's insane. And it just really does encapsulate it like way better than even like a lot of Western media does. The only thing that really kind of like comes close to it is Blade Runner, which is, you know, like a visual masterpiece of like a once in a generation, maybe once in like a century achievement that just kind of happens almost accidentally. I don't want to say it was accidental that these things happen, but the fact that all of these pieces lined up to produce this gigantic masterpiece is almost like miraculous. It's almost accidental because it's not something like a book or even like a painting or something like that where one person has a vision and they can execute it to an exacting degree of like, this is exactly what I want it to be. And as long as it is within my skill set of ability, I can make it happen that way. And as long as I stick to my guns, it will be what I want it to be. Movies are not that. Movies cannot be that. TV shows are the same. They are the product of an enormous amount of sources combining together. Sometimes you get something like Blade Runner, which is greater than the sum of its parts. Most of the time, you don't. Most of the time, you get something where people are putting things together and there are cool elements. Some things are good, some things are bad. You know, you have an actor that can't pull their weight, or you have an actor that's really good, but the script isn't that perfect, or the director is a little, you know, just samey, plainy, nothing really exciting happening. The story can be good, the story can be bad, the story blah 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 blah. You get what I'm saying. All of these things to make a great movie happen, they happen in a lot of ways because of just like accidental miracles. If they come together and they make something like really spectacular that just rearranges your sense of aesthetics forever, like Blade Runner did for I think a lot of people, it's because of some just crazy circumstances. And then, you know, anime being a little bit more tightly controlled can replicate it better than most movies can. This is why you get like, I'm again, like, other than Blade Runner, the best cyberpunk is all anime. You know, it's all anime, it's all manga.
easily the warmest and most aesthetic part of VHS anime. There's something completely irreplaceable about the eons of blood, sweat, and tears of traditional style animation. I mean, I'm really trying to stay objective when I define my thesis here, but god damn, I mean, look at that. To me, this is the zenith of visual media. There's just something about it that makes me stare slack-jawed at my screen in complete awe. Hi, I'm Chimaku-chan. And I haven't watched an anime since Obama's second term. So what exactly makes an anime vintage? Well, my loose definition is that any anime that wasn't made completely digitally would be considered vintage.
I would agree. I would agree with that. I would absolutely agree with that. I think that is probably the best definition of it. I don't know if I would even use the term vintage. Yeah, you just say like, okay, this is drawn anime as opposed to digital anime. It doesn't have to be vintage. We could make, you know, stuff today. Like I want to say most of the Studio Ghibli stuff is that, and it seems like it. It looks like it. It feels like this older style that has just been abandoned because it is like way more labor intensive. It's much more difficult, and I would also say it's probably more like skill based. You can't outsource a lot of this stuff, and you can't use a lot of the digital tools that make things easier, but their ease of use actually makes this production of it kind of not worse, but the ease of doing it means that you're not going to be as particular. You're not going to be as careful because it's like instead of drawing out a full giant page of animation, all this kind of stuff that's going to take, I don't know, 5-10 minutes, you can just, control Z. Oop, no, I don't like that line. Boom, I'm just going to pop it back. And it's essentially everything's like a loose sketch if you're doing it digitally. It becomes a lot easier to fix mistakes, and therefore you're not trying to anticipate where you might make a mistake. And therefore, you get into this thing where you're going to probably actually end up making more mistakes unintentionally because the intentionality is missing from the process of the production.
Let me just show you an example. Yeah. Look, if it starts with this logo, you know you're about to watch a certified hood classic. Easily my favorite era that anime ever went through would probably be the tradigital era. This term was coined by Judith Moncrief and later popularized by Jeffrey Katzenberg. He was the CEO of some company, I don't remember. The methodology applied in tradigital animation is that cells are individually inked, painted, and photographed atop the background.
Are you kidding me? Okay.
Is that
Look at
cells
this.
are individually
that literally, this sketch page looks better than most modern art. I would pay money for that. If you were to give me, if you were to show me a picture that's been, a painting that's worth $100 million, I'd go, I wouldn't pay 2 cents for that. This, I would be like, oh God, I would pay some money for that.
inked, painted.
Okay, this. Look at that. That looks good. I'm just watching, Star Trek The Next Generation, and I'm like, the first season, which is kind of, in a lot of ways, it's like the weakest season, but it does have this just intense 80s majesty about it in terms of the visuals outside of when it's just spaceships and space stations and planets and this kind of stuff. It's stuff just looks crazy good because the person who was making the Enterprise ship had to be a lunatic to make it the way that they did. In the same way that, the person who's painting these little dots and doing this stuff has to be a lunatic. The only way they were able to survive in this industry is that they were so insanely obsessed with aesthetics and drawing and art that it was the only possible avenue for them to survive in life was to do this, even if the way of doing it was so insanely grueling and difficult. It didn't matter. They were going to push through blood, sweat, tears, crawl over broken glass to just, draw another picture. That's the type of people that were attracted to, this era. Those are the only people that, were in the industry, because everybody else was like, no, I'm not doing this. No, this is so hard. This is so difficult. So you had just complete psychotic lunatic artists employed at like every level. That was it.
And photographed atop a background. And its result is something almost magical.
Yep. Come on.
A lot of people bring up Akira in this regard, as the film's process is entirely watchable as a documentary. But an example I'd rather use is one of Lupin III. All me and my homies fucking love Lupin. The movie that does best what I'm talking about is 1987's The Fuma Conspiracy. There's so many shots that I can name that I think are gorgeous, and they make my limbic system light up like a Christmas tree. The movie has the widest color palette, like, ever. Outdoor scenes are airy and warm, and tense indoor shots have the most bleak and oppressive color harmonies known to man. And funnily enough, I actually really enjoy the glow that a tape's natural aging gives to animation. I find that these flaws give a lot of character to a film or a show, specifically in the line quality and colors. And chromatic aberration may be an aesthetic choice now, but back then it was just a limitation of the medium. And I'm biting my fucking knuckle trying to stop talking about the color bleed and how good it looks under direct light. God! That being said, there are
That is an interesting one, where again, it's like, it's just a miracle of the time. It's just something that it's not about the actual, it's a miracle. It's one of those things that is accidentally good. And the thing is, I guarantee people were aware of this limitation. They were aware of it and they played into it, which is why it looks good as opposed to the difference. Like, you can have a limitation and it can hold you back. It can be something where you go, oh, this looks like crap. In the same way that, like, you look at the old NES games and you'd go, wow, why is the soundtrack so good? Why are the themes for Zelda and Mario, so iconic? They stick in your head immediately. They're super recognizable. It's because of the technical limitations. They were like, okay, the only thing that we can do here is like a melody. That's it. That's all we've got room for on this cartridge. We don't have the memory to do anything else. Okay, so we have to do that. That is turning a limitation into a strength. So maybe I'm wrong. I don't know anyone who's did traditional animation back in the day in, 1980s Japan. Correct me if I'm wrong. But I would imagine they were aware of this limitation. They were aware of what was going to happen when things were transferred over to tape. And they go, okay, how can we use this to our advantage? How can we make it so that this looks good as opposed to bad? Because it just makes sense that they would do that.
A lot of passion projects out there right now, specifically restoring older media with 4K scans of its 35mm film. What immediately comes to mind for me is Patilro's Stardust project and Kaneko Video's achievement at preserving the film. They've done a fantastic job of not only scanning it at such a lossless quality, but even revising the English sub, making this an extremely easy watch, which can't be said for every anime at this age. I think it'd be a crime not to speak in brief about the vaporwave movement and its children, like VHS pop and city pop. The medium saturated with graphics of girls and 80s anime. Like Sailor Moon and city pop are just inseparable. That's law by this point. And I must admit, I'm a victim to the craze. I've got extremely fond memories of watching old side videos that would play clips of Cowboy Bebop. And now to me, the two are kind of married. It fits perfectly with the aesthetic, and it's hard to articulate, but it's kind of got Toonami vibes. I'm sure you get what I mean.
Yeah, I get what you mean.
Saib? Shit. And I really do owe it to those who made these music videos with classic anime. The marriage of audio and visual is really elemental, and it's one of the best synergies I've ever seen. It's actually watching these videos again that spurred on this video idea. I wouldn't have fallen in love the way I had it not been for them. So, if you're out there, guys, thank you. So, do I believe that this era of anime is the superior art form? Something indomitable and we've peaked as artists? No, not necessarily. But anime
Yeah, not necessarily. Is basically saying yes, but doesn't have to be.
created from the 1950s all the way up to the 1990s demands we take a look back at it, as we're probably never going to see something like that again. And
Okay.
I have a confession to make. I don't think we should ever go back to tradigital animation. Even after I've spent so long praising it, I've got to dash all my hopes of it ever returning for one simple statement. Animating is hard.
Yeah.
And
I mean, this is what I was saying. I mean, the only people that were in that game were the people who could hack it, and the only people that could hack it were, again, like just lunatics. They were like complete crazy people that could only hack it because they were obsessed about it, to the point where, you know, the rest of their lives was probably garbage. And the creative process of them, you know, drawing their stuff was the moment of abject joy in their daily lives. That was it. Everything else was terrible. This is the thing that they wanted to do, so they wanted to do it as much as they possibly could. And those are the only people that were in the industry. I could be wrong, but I'm not.
I mean, really hard. The reason the industry was able to make the jump was due to the improvement of technology. As computers got faster, they also got cheaper, but the labor never got any less intensive. And the workload wasn't the only thing to stay the same either. Animators overseas can expect about $2 per frame of animation. That's huge earnings if you were a computer, but as someone who's slaving away at 100 frames a day, it's not adding up to much. At least, not proportional to the work you're doing. I found a video a while ago that was tagged as unintentional ASMR. It's a mini doc about Studio Trigger's development on Little Witch Academia, and for the first few minutes, I completely understand what the poster meant. This is an incredibly quiet, studious, and cozy environment, and it feels good. But if you listen to what the people behind the desks are saying, your heart would immediately sink. 全然ダメだ僕ありますねずっと長く考えて書いたやつとかを吉谷さんが修正するときとかは
他の作品とかだとやっぱ時間がなくてトータル2週間とか
Yeah.
何秒の活性でしたっけ4秒12ですねバーンってバーンってそう
Yeah.
報われてほしいですね It's just not fair. These guys are making some of the best in the field, and they're treated like dirt. And if this is happening with Studio Trigger, what's happening to the little guys? I don't know. It's food for thought. The documentary closes out with director Yo Yoshinari being asked of what he thinks of the new animators, the people he's been working with for such a long time now. Does he like them?
そうですねもうちょっと付き合い長くならないとあれかなまだちょっと若干交流不足というか絵でしかコミュニケーション取ってないので
I think
Yeah, I mean, the other side of that is also that there is just a difference in work culture in terms of like the transmission of craftsmanship in Japan. In Japan, it's normal for, I shouldn't say normal now, but it was for the vast majority of their entire aesthetic cultural history for someone to basically go, I'm in this profession. I'm apprenticing to, you know, like my father, my uncle, or somebody like that, and they are a carpenter. So at 12 years old, 10 years old, whatever, I'm going to be in the carpentry, you know, workshop with my father, my uncle, my brother, whatever. And they are just constant, like, you know, you're just there as a helper. You're there as an intern, and you're there absorbing the stuff, and usually there's like a lot of kind of, you're going to be the how can we describe this? You're going to be the shit heel. You're going to be the person that's basically just, the gopher. You get all the crap jobs. You're there, and your time there sucks. And partially, if you're going to be generous, you can say the reason they do that is to make sure that you're, going to be disciplined enough. You're going to be willing to suffer the rough spots of, this job, because there's rough spots in any job. So they're kind of like, they're building up your tolerance for pain and suffering. But also, you're there and you're learning every part of the profession. And it's, again, normal for something like, okay, like you can't make the eggs. You can't make the omelet in like a sushi restaurant until you've been working in a sushi restaurant for like 10 years. Like, that's crazy. Like, to an American, to a Western mind, that kind of transmission of skills is absurd. It's insane. It's like, what are you talking about? Like, no. But that is the sort of cultural craftsmanship that Japan has had for, again, basically its entire artistic, aesthetic, craft history. And that's probably true for most of the West too, except the West got away from it much earlier, or, relatively, because industrialization hits, America, the West, much earlier in time, and therefore, we've lost a lot of craftsmanship. We've got a lot of people who, if they were to try to build a copy of the house that was made 100, 200 years ago, they simply wouldn't be able to do it. They'd be like, I have no idea how to do this, because the skill to do it takes an enormous amount of time to learn, and it takes probably like multiple generations of learning and skill and refinement. And that legacy of passing that craft on has, in a lot of ways, died out in a lot of fields. In Japan, it's basically, you're now seeing it. Like, the people who are the generational descendants of, bamboo carving masters that are like, yeah, we've been doing this for 9 generations. They're in like their 70s, 80s, 90s now. They're still doing their work. And they're like, okay, well, I want to pass this on. I want an apprentice. I want someone to carry on this legacy, be the next, holder of this workshop. But the people that are coming in are coming from a more Western mindset of, you want to have a job that makes you feel good. You want to have a job that kind of like, reinforces what you're doing. That's fun to have. And that's not what they grew up in. They're 80, 90 years old. They can't learn this new stuff. Like, the people that can are strange anomalies. And I would imagine this guy came up in that era where I would be unsurprised if this guy was like physically smacked around by his senpais, by the people who were, his mentors. I would be unsurprised if he had, gotten a couple, whacks on the head, like, what the hell are you doing, you dumbass? Because that is, in a lot of ways, the culture. And, we can certainly say that's not, good, that's not necessary. You didn't need to do that to pass on these lessons, but it is part of the stuff. And to then try to, completely unlearn that and go forward in a totally different direction with these new younger people is very weird. So again, when he's saying, I need to interact with them more, it's like, yeah, it's because the way they interact is purely through their work, and the way that they interact with each other is therefore only about the work. And therefore it takes a lot longer to figure out, that person through the lens purely of their, their drawings. So it's like, yeah, it's understandable to say, we're not going to move you up until you've been around and doing this exact same thing for 10 plus years, because that's the amount of time necessary for us to figure out who you are as a person through, just communicating through your drawings as opposed to, talking to you and that kind of stuff. And it's difficult to say whether or not it's better or worse. It's certainly different, and obviously it's worse in the sense of this style of craftsmanship, passing down the legacy of this is basically dying out. And, it sucks that the craft is kind of changing, dying out, maybe. It's, it's not good. Now, again, it's not to say that anime is dying out. Anime is, huge. But this old-timey style of, we really kind of only want the people that are brutally obsessives, that, drawing is their only purpose and joy in life, or, it's their greatest ecstasy. That's gone. Now everyone kind of wants to be like an artist and that type of stuff. And those people that, just want to be artists because, they're watching cool documentaries about it. They're like, oh yeah, we'd love to make a TV show or something like that. Yeah, that like get famous for that kind of stuff. They are not the people that are going to respond well to crazy hours and insane deadlines and, like brutal conditions. It's just not, they're not cut out for it.
絵でしかコミュニケーション取ってないので
I think that clip speaks entirely for itself. I'm sure by now it's obvious that I detest the work culture of modern anime, solely for the stress upon the working class to create it. I think modern anime has a bright future in front of it, and I certainly don't think it's going anywhere. But I'm hoping that the work ethic, along with traditional anime, can live as a relic of the past. And one of these we can look upon more fondly than the other. So, to all the countless years of work and those timeless classics, I love you. You're gorgeous, and I can think of no more a poetic and beautiful end for you. Thank you.
Yeah. Yep, pretty good. Again, I mean, I love it. It is really good. It's not to say that nobody's doing similar stuff. I don't think so. I want to say Studio Ghibli still does, very much the old style stuff. They recognize it's better. They recognize it is aesthetically superior to the sort of digital cleanliness, the sort of simplicity of it. And again, it's not simplicity that goes into elegance. It's kind of just simplistic. And it doesn't feel as good. It doesn't have the same tactile reality that these older style animes do. I just think I do think they're better. All right. So now Charlie Kirk's assassin was a furry. I feel like we've heard probably some of this. And certainly, oh yeah, that's right. What was on the bullet casing? Yeah, that's right.
Now, if you don't know what a furry is, it's an individual which, instead of being normal and masturbating to real people porn with real actors, they go and they get off to this, right? And so recently, the shooter of Charlie Kirk was revealed to have played on Steam video games with this type of paraphernalia. And so if you go on Twitter, you see a lot of individuals, at least the ones that I interact with, who are blaming the video game. Like, the idea is that without the cartoon, I guess Charlie Kirk would have still been alive today.
Really?
Now,
come on.
I think the situation is a little bit more complex, right?
Yeah.
I don't think that if we sent the Terminator back in time to remove that video game from existing, it would have saved anyone. And to me also, this explanation is eerily similar to what the left uses with if only there weren't guns, Charlie Kirk would have been alive today. I reject both of concepts that have to do with safetyism. Like, I don't think like society can be perfected if we just remove a couple of things from it that have to do with entertainment and petty shit.
would agree.
And so I want to make this video to telling you what I think is the problem here. And at the end of the video, maybe you'll agree or not with me, but most of you probably know that when I was a teenager and a little bit later on in life, I used to be a furry. And so for the very first time, a lot of people that are subscribed to this channel will hear the arguments of a person that was on the inside and can tell you a little bit more what causes people to join the communities.
Oh my god. Okay, VTuber. Never mind. I don't know why I'm surprised. I shouldn't be surprised. Come on, Eastern European VTuber. Yeah, obviously. Okay.
So if you're a
Surprise
concerned
face,
parent,
gone.
at least you may know some of the signs. And I also talk a little bit about far left and far right extremism. Being on the internet, I interacted with both groups. A lot of the furries, as you know, are far left, but I also debated many people on the far right and interacted with them with social media. So I can definitely say something about that as well. There are similarities and differences between far left and far right. But first, let's focus a little bit on the furries.
Probably.
As I mentioned, I used to be one. I stopped being one the moment I got a girlfriend. It was by the time I joined med school. Her vagina healed me from my degeneracy and turned me into a weeb. And since that day, I only liked anime with girls that have big titties and plump tushies, and I have never got interested in this stuff again. But here's something that opened my eyes that I found very fascinating.
Yeah.
Was talking with a furry 20 years ago,
Okay.
and we were noticing that a lot of the people around us have family issues or have actual
Yeah, and I mean, this is not totally shocking. Yeah. It's one thing to be just like, look, you're degen, you just kind of go and watch porn all the time, and therefore, you appreciate all of it. You're a man of not refined cultural tastes, but you paint with a broad brush. You have a wide palette of things. You can paint with many colors. Yes, that is some people, but the people that are like they would say they are furries, that are like that's their thing. The reason they get into that is probably, yeah, for reasons of like, trauma. It's something where it's like, there's not a good reason to get into it and do the stuff that you're doing. Yeah, like you're probably doing it to like get away from some other worse stuff.
trauma.
Yeah.
And what I mean by this is, like, I was talking about this Brazilian furry, and he opened up to me and he said that a priest molested him when he was young, and he begged the priest to let him go, and eventually, like, the priest did. His family called the cops, and it was in the newspapers. Apparently, the priest had killed other kids, right? So, like, he was lucky to escape.
Damn.
And I was like, oh, that's really fucked up, isn't it? And the other furry goes like, yeah, like, do you know that there's another case with this other guy, like his uncle molested him? And I'm like, holy shit, well, isn't the case with the other guy that had his brother? And it was like, every single person, all of a sudden, that we knew, the more we thought about it, they had some family issues. Like, there was some trauma there. They weren't people that got raised in healthy families.
Yeah.
Even the furry that I was talking with, he got traumatized because his girlfriend, which I think like they were 14 when it happened, like she hanged herself.
God,
And he came into her house, and he saw that, and that traumatized him, and it remained with him.
That
And
would
it's
do
like
it.
Every single one had like some issues. So like that was like the first time I realized, okay, so like there is some problem in the community. Now that's later on I discovered that's just one group of people, right? It wasn't all furries. It was just like a big demographic of.
Yeah, it's like that's definitely one big cohort of the population. The other people are like autistic people that just for whatever reason, like having a like I feel like it's the people that are like, I don't know, fursuited or something like that. They kind of like prefer the wooden, expressionless face. It's more comforting, I guess. But yeah, that's also a big cohort. Again, not everybody, but again, the people who are like, there's a difference between people who are like furries as like part of their identity, like that stuff. That is like, okay, hopefully best case scenario, fingers crossed, this person's just autistic. Because if not, you'd go, oh god, there's some horrible dark shit that's causing them to be like this. Like it's not normal.
them. And while I don't have studies and surveys, the demographic must have been pretty big. Because on every forum that I would go, on every IRC server that I would go, I would notice the same thing. Like usually you would meet a person, and when they opened up, they had some really nasty thing happening to them in their past.
Yep.
And so, fast forward to, I believe it was 2016 when Antifa invades the furry community. And while that sounds hilarious, it was actually a very smart move for Antifa because they realized furries have a lot of money. If you're not aware, a fursuit can go all the way up to $5,000 or more.
It's not to say they have a lot of money, it's that they're willing to spend it on that specific thing. Yeah. It's not to say that they're, yeah. It's not to say furries have a ton of money. That's not true. It's just that they're willing to not spend it on other stuff, and they are willing to spend it on stuff like fursuit type stuff. I will also say Antifa probably recognized that there's a big overlap where they were like, oh man, like we probably have a lot of people that are like mentally deranged in our soldiers, and they've got, the furry community has a lot of also like, mentally deranged people. So why not just, go where this is pointing us? We can recruit a lot of people that are very similar to the guys we already got.
At the time, it was incredibly expensive, and also furry art is expensive. Like a furry artist could ask for $500 for a picture. So like, furries have money, meaning that a lot of protests, a lot of NGOs, a lot of donations and funds can be raised up by using them. And the other thing they realize is that furries have a lot of time. They spend much of their time online, so they can partake into cancel culture activities. You'd go on Twitter at the time, and you'd see someone getting fired. And when you'd look at the people that were contacting his place of business, it was at least half of them furries. And so Antifa used them as really good foot soldiers in order to put pressure on right-wingers.
Accurate.
And you notice that the people...
This is why the amount of like Twitter people that are like always like canceling, you're like, why is it always furries doing it? And it's like, well, it's like, why is everyone who's, doing this stuff a furry? And it's like, well, again, a lot of overlap in like personalities and personal histories between the people that like, were the Antifa soldiers beforehand and people that were furries beforehand. Now, they're just like, all right, well, you know what? We're kind of basically the same stuff, so we can kind of just do the same thing.
That were coming in from Antifa, they weren't necessarily from bad families. Quite the opposite, actually. They came from really good families and stable homes. But looking at their background, it was always extremely religious. More specifically, Mormon background, Jewish background, and also evangelical background. And so I had to think a little bit. It's like, why is it that these three denominations are so overly represented when it comes to people that would join Antifa? Like, why is the children from these families so proeminent? And it was then they would join Antifa and then the furry community. And obviously it's not the ideology, right? Because it's like completely different religions, completely different belief systems and moral values. So it can't be that. And what I think it's the militant system, the type of raising your kid that a lot of right-wingers on the internet would say based now. But it's the idea of like every single Sunday morning you have to wake up and you have to go to church. Let me see what music you're listening to. Let me see what video games you're listening to. Let me see what movies you're watching. Tell me the friends that you're hanging out with, right? So you create a system where the child doesn't really have a sense of self. Like he lives life through these guardrails. He's not allowed to do anything bad whatsoever. Constantly gets called by the parents minute after minute. Rules that don't make any sense. Like you have to go to Sunday church. It's like, why? I already know the Bible. Leave me alone. And it ends up creating rebels. Like the moment the child gets out of the household, he will do literally the opposite.
I was wondering if he was going to say, it's a thing of rebellion, or it's basically like, they are like the reason why he was saying like militant, being very, super structured, all this kind of stuff. That was transferred over into the Antifa stuff. It's like it's the same reason why, you get the Antifa people that are like so super duper hyper focused on, making sure all of your word use is, correctly policed and all of that type of stuff. And maybe he will go into that because I mean there is a crossover there, but he's kind of breaking down the differences here between, again, like sort of the different cohorts that are attracted to these groups.
Of everything that their parents taught them, because he, number one, wants to explore the world, and number two, he also has a lot of spite, right? Because these families wouldn't negotiate with their kids. They wouldn't try to talk with the kids. They would impose stuff on their kids. They would force their kids. And so they end up trying to create a life where they're exactly the opposite of what their parents did, right? This is why the moral compass is 180. And you can see this happening with children from woke parents as well, except they're the ones that join far-right movements. And the perfect example is with Destiny's Child. If you notice, like, Destiny is a very progressive man, and his child is now praising Hitler. Like, it's the same thing, like trying to do the opposite of what the father is. And so once you understand this, like once you get the mentality of the type of people that are more likely to join far left and far right movements, you can understand what to do to prevent your children from joining those movements. Parenting is hard, obviously. I don't think like there's a cheat code. I don't think like there's a way to make sure that
so the rebellion type stuff here is like there is, who was it who was saying this? It was a guy I think I saw on Heretics who was basically saying like, he was a goth. Like, again, this would have been what, 20, 30 years, I guess 20, 30 years ago, something like that. He was like, yeah, like when I was getting into that age of, like your, puberty age or high school age, you want to be like a cool rebel, this type of stuff. So you were like a goth, you're an emo, now it's like trans is the thing, to be like a rebel, to be like the cool countercultural, this type of thing. And the way to sort of parent through that without fucking your kids up super bad is to go, oh, okay, whatever. Yeah. I was like, yeah. This is who I am, Mom. I'm like, yeah, okay. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, whatever. They'll grow out of it. If you keep pushing, no, you're not, then you might screw them up, and they might, go way further down that line than they otherwise would have. They're not going to grow out of it as much.
You're a good parent because the child has its own personality, and sometimes you may have a child with a personality that's just like set to fail. Natural selection is a thing. But when I talk about extreme movements like far left or far right, what I mean is like you join a group that tries to erase your personality, tries to erase your sense of self, and build you back up again into something that you're not. So when you join like the furry community, or when you join Antifa, they definitely have this thing called groupthink, right? Obviously, like not every single one, but like it's the general vibe in the movement. And the groupthink like tells you what you are allowed to believe, and you can only assert to other people, or you can be silent. Because if you believe something else, you get ostracized. You're treated like the devil. And this is pretty much what we notice in the far left groups. Now, there's a lot of
Very much so. I mean, almost like they're taking notes like directly, or taking marching orders directly out of like how to build a cult handbooks.
overlap between LGBTQ plus group and the furry community. And so, like, almost everyone that's a furry is also into LGBTQ plus, not the other way around. But if you have an ideology that basically tells you you need to respect someone's pronouns or else you're the devil, you're committing genocide, right? Like, they actually accused J.K. Rowling of this. They said that because she doesn't affirm the gender ideology, then she's committing genocide. And you should stop bigots by any means necessary, punch a Nazi and all of that.
Does any of this sound familiar? Any of this resonating a little bit differently in light of recent events?
Then eventually, like, someone does internalize this. And you end up with a person that, from what I understand from the media, is actually from a respected family. But he joined an extremist group, right? An extremist ideology. And he got radicalized. Now, it's important to understand why they joined this types of ideology, because it's not the video games or the furry art that does it.
Sure.
The problem is that you have an individual that doesn't feel like they fit in society. Right? Like, if they're constantly getting invalidated, like if his hobbies, his passions, everything gets invalidated, they're wrong, they're not good. Eventually, when he goes on the internet and finds a community that actually accepts him and is completely different than the people around him, they're much more likely to join that community. And so this is why it's important for parents to actually find hobbies for their kids and encourage them. This is why it's important to understand that
It's also, more likely that they'll go deeper into it and they'll attach themselves much more strongly to it, so that anything that would threaten their belonging in that group is responded to much more strongly. Anything that, would potentially ostracize them from that group is like a mortal threat, as opposed to, okay, I mean, that sucks, but whatever. It's like it's life or death.
a teenager is also going to start being interested in vices, whether it's drinking, whether it's watching a titty, whether it's like if they're 16, they're going to try to start exploring. I'm not saying that a parent should be indulgent and allow everything, but instead of like completely banning your kid from drinking or going at parties, a father should actually spend some time with the kid, go out in town on a family get together and have a beer with the kid. It's not going to be the end of the world, right? And instead of telling him, no, if you touch alcohol, you're grounded, you never get to go outside. Why not say something like, okay, if you go to a party, you can have like 2 beers, but don't get wasted. Isn't that more common sense? And if the kid does get wasted, then you punish.
Yeah.
Instead of telling the kid, oh my goodness, you masturbated, that's horrible, go and pray to Jesus, allow him to watch Baywatch, allow him to have some free time. That doesn't mean that they should go into degeneracy. Like, of course not. Have parental controls. Always see what your kid is doing. But we all were teenagers. Like, we know how it's like. And I do believe that being too permissible is just as bad as being too extremist.
Yeah. Yeah. That's fair. I mean, you want balance. You want, the middle path is the correct one. Very true. Easier said than done, though, because, the middle path is very narrow in some places. Very narrow, very difficult to walk. And it's a sharp slope where you would go, if you slip, very easy to go one way or the other.
Allowing the kid free reign is just as dangerous as controlling everything and not allowing absolutely any type of bad behavior. Because I'm telling you, like someone that was in the furry community, and I've noticed a lot of people from families that were helicopter parenting. And, if I was to get a list of what those parents did, everyone would say, well, they did everything right. And this is the exact same situation. Like,
yeah, and this is not new. It's not necessarily just about the furry community. It's like any of these sort of like niche fetish communities, any of these types of things, or I guess now we can say like sort of like niche political groups, they are a reaction in a lot of ways, most of the time, from, either trauma stuff or from, overly controlling, which, I mean, if you want to call that trauma, go ahead. Parents, and not even necessarily parents, but just like communities in general. Like if you're in like a super Catholic or Christian or evangelical or whatever community, it's not everybody, but there is a certain segment of, a population that it just does not respond well to that sort of super intense, um, structured militant belief system. Like you have to live your life this way. A lot of people respond very well to it, but there's always going to be a small portion of them. And what they do with that is going to be dependent on, like individual factors and circumstances and these things. It's like, okay, it's raising the possibility that they're going to get into, whatever, some weird, like they're going to be into like BDSM or something like that. It's not to say that, everyone who does it is into that. No, not the case. But being in like a super, super controlling environment, if you're one of those people that does not respond well to that, you're going to respond to it by, going the other direction and something like that. You're going to go into the furry community. You're going to be an Antifa person. You're going to be a BDSM, lover, so on and so forth. So, and again, I mean, it's very difficult because again, like I said, a lot of people actually respond very well to this. It's, it's a great thing, which is why the communities exist. Because for a lot of people, they get a lot out of it. They're like, yeah, no, this is great. I love living my life this way. Having these rigid controls, having, everything laid out for me. I love it. It's great. It's fantastic. It's not for everybody, though. And for the people that it's not for, it's really not for. And their reaction to it is going to be like, yeah, super crazy far away from where, everyone in their community would like them to be.
From what I see in the media, his parents did absolutely everything right. And yet it still ended up with this monster. And it kind of reminds me of Elliot Rodgers in a way. For those of you who don't recall, Elliot Rodgers, also known as the Supreme Gentleman on the internet, the one that got the incel movement at the time completely demonized to the point where even today it's a slur to be an incel.
Maybe I know what this is.
He came from a good family. Like, he wasn't abused. His family was upper middle class. He had an expensive car. And yet, he ended up doing what he did. It's unfortunate. As for the degeneracy itself, because people look at this and it's like, why are individuals degenerate? Again, I used to be a furry until I got a girlfriend. And once I got a girlfriend, I just stopped. And I noticed this a lot with other furries. Like, a lot of them, in fact, like the overwhelming majority of them at the time I was in the community, never had a girlfriend. In fact, the furry community itself had very few women. And it's a no-brainer. If you take men that can't find companionship, their hormones are raging, they're horny as hell, some of them are going to transition and they're going to play the part. And that's pretty much what happened. And then you have the ideology that venerates and worships the ones that transition, and they say that any type of person that disagrees with their gender or that even tries to breach the subject is a person that uses words as violence, and so they can justify doing violence against those people as self-defense. It's horrible. But anyway, my assessment here is that the degeneracy comes from the lack of companionship. You don't get lack of companionship because of the degeneracy. Because I've noticed this with other furries as well. Like, the moment they got a girlfriend in real life, they just left the community. And so the problem is with single men. And the reason you have so many single men is also...
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't quite apply in this specific scenario. Again, he's talking about the community in general, and I think he's accurate. I think he is telling the truth, and it's true for most things. Like, people who are like, I don't know, you would say like porn addicts or something like that. Generally speaking, yeah, if they get into a relationship, they do something like that, it goes away because it's a substitute for the time and energy and attention they would be spending on, like a real life relationship and partner and these types of things. They're filling that, not void, like the attention that they want to be spending on that is just extra because it's not being put to its intended use. So they go, okay, well, I'm going to take all of that time and, emotional energy and I'm going to put it into, porn or for whatever. Right. And once you get something, you go, oh, good, right. But, you're reallocating your, time and emotional and attentional resources to the thing that they want to be spent on. So, of course, specifically with the Charlie Kirk assassin guy, he apparently did have a boyfriend, girlfriend, transition, something along those lines. And so it doesn't totally apply. But then again, you're like, okay, well, maybe, maybe it did. Maybe he wasn't like, I mean, who knows at this point. But, he was in a relationship.
Also because of the way society is hardwired against men right now due to feminism, where if you even approach a girl on the street, you have a Gillette commercial telling you that you're a rapist. And you have like all of the demonization towards men, and on top of that, men have absolutely no way to know how to properly approach a woman. Like, what must they do in order to be attractive? There is absolutely no institution that tries to tell them this. The only ones that do are feminist institutions ran by women who have no experience in picking up other women or attracting other women.
This is true.
Right? Like, they know how to attract men. They know how to be attractive for men. And then it's also the fact that, well, women also seem to like, in 2025, they seem to like men within the age range of 30 to 40. That's the reality. Why? Because, well, they're the ones that have a house, they're the ones that have a car, and they're the ones that have their life in order. Meanwhile, if you look at a guy that's 16, right, he wants to get a girlfriend, he wants to get a significant other, women aren't interested in that. Like, the overwhelming majority of women aren't.
Yeah.
And
that's fair.
What do men do between the age of 16 and 30? They get desperate. That's what they do. And desperation leads to this type of stuff. Banning these communities, I personally think it's like banning the symptom, but not the root cause of the problem.
Oh, yeah.
The community itself exists because lonely, desperate men are trying to find other people that can sympathize with them. And so, even if those communities wouldn't exist, they would create other communities. So that's not the way to solve it. The way to solve it is to figure out how to make 16-year-old men feel fulfilled about being men. Feel comfortable about being men, feel happy in their shoes, have lifelong dreams and aspirations that they feel that they can accomplish. And so, as you notice, the solution is incredibly complex, incredibly difficult, and no one is even bothering to start something like that.
They're not. That's true. All right, we got this other video here from Side Scrollers, and I might end stream if the background noise gets worse, because apparently people are doing stuff in and around my place. So if it gets really bad, I might just, we'll just cut it off. It gets annoying.
I've said many, many times, the gaming space was the first to adopt a lot of the nonsense that we see on a day-to-day basis in society. It'll also be the last to drop all the nonsense that we see in society. Saw this clip over.
Is that true? It'll be the last. It was the first to adopt it, and it'll be the last to drop it. I don't know if that's true. I feel like I understand the first to adopt it. I can understand it because there's a lot of people who are like campaigning to be consultants on a lot of games. Your Sarkeesian stuff. I will also say though, I don't know if that's true. If they were the first, if they were just like the ones that got pushed back on the hardest, the fastest, and they were noticed the most immediately. That's a possibility. In terms of being the last to drop it, I guess games have like the largest lead time in terms of the time it takes to create a game as opposed to a movie, a TV show, a book. a, name other media is probably the longest. So they have to basically stay with the team more or less. They can't clean house and start over on a new project and have that new project come out within a reasonable amount of time. So they're like, all right, so we've decided right now that we want to get rid of all this stuff. Okay, well, we've got like 6 games in the pipeline. It takes 3, 4, 5 years to make this game. Therefore, the best we can do is, 3, 4, 5 years down the line, clean house. Because we've the team's already together, they're already doing their stuff. Maybe we can get rid of some like really bad actors who are spouting their mouths off on X or something like that. But in terms of like actually excising the ideology from, our studio, we're not going to do it right now. We're not going to do it right now. We'll just, not hire them after we finish this game. We'll not rehire them for the next project. That's kind of reasonable.
On X, and I really just wanted to kind of play this for you guys and show you guys this clip because I found there was a new phrase that I've never heard when it comes to the latest gaming virtue signal. Would you guys like to watch this 1 minute and 5 second clip and then point out what that is?
Boy, sure, I'm down to cry crimson this afternoon. Why not?
Here we go. Let's see.
Hi, my name is Adine. I am the Liquid Women in Warcraft lead.
My eyes are already bleeding.
Liquid?
Ho, ho, ho.
Yeah, Liquid is a
There
team,
she is.
by the way, Blabs.
Wait, what is this?
Liquid?
Ho, ho, ho.
Yeah, Liquid is a
There she
team,
is.
by the way,
It
Blabs.
was a team.
Liquid is a team.
It is, yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Sure.
Here we go.
Liquid Women in Warcraft is an initiative that was created by Team Liquid and Liquid Guild to basically bring visibility to women and gender minority within the WoW community.
Gender minority?
Ding, 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 ding,
fuck
ding,
is
ding,
that?
ding. He nailed it. Gender minority. I'd never heard that phrase before.
How many
Really?
genders are there? 36? Counted them myself.
This woman would say at least 126.
Jesus.
Probably.
She'd say as many as there needs to be. Let's
Yeah,
go and,
that's what you- there
see
you
how
go.
this goes.
I am my own
Visibility
gender.
to women
What? Oh, I'm sorry. What's up, Labs?
I am my own gender.
No, thank you for your bravery.
and gender minority within the WoW community and elevate them to the same standards as their male
Oh,
counterparts so
god
that they
damn,
can
those
reach
hands
what
are massive.
Damn, you're right. She did us some big ass hands.
I'm looking for the Adam's apple.
Easy there. There's no reason to call her Ann Coulter. That's mean.
She's slapping your
Jeez.
whole body.
Good. Slap the smile right off your
Yo,
face. That's
I'm
crazy.
just saying.
Oif.
Damn.
Gotta look for the Adam's apple.
Also, how are women a minority? I'm so sick of that shit. You're more than men in most cases. I think there's like, what, 53%?
It's 51%.
Well, Flash, I'm glad
It's
you asked,
51%
Flash,
of the
because
population. Yeah,
they're
that's
gonna tell
accurate.
you.
standards as their male counterparts so that they can reach what
Get
is
good at the
known
game,
as
dumb
the top
bitch.
tier of
You don't have to be elevated.
Come on.
Flash,
You're not wrong, Flash.
Flash, you're like a chef that just lays down the proper recipes, like in the most succinct way, right? You're like, why do I need to add butter when there's flour? The response is just, get good at the game, you dumb bitch.
It's true.
All right, let's. While I
You don't deserve
disagree,
a prop up because you have a pussy.
look, I don't disagree with you, but let's see why they feel they do.
so that they can reach what is known as the top tier of guilds competing in events such as the World First Race.
The ecosystem of high-end World of Warcraft ratings.
Hold on. The lady who's speaking, what do you think she looks like, Blabs?
Oh, Jabba the Hutt.
Me. Blue hair.
I like Captain Solo where he is.
Okay, because you can feel the meat resonating from her body.
Yeah,
as she's
stank.
speaking. Here we go. Listen to
It's
this.
there's a
The
deepness.
ecosystem of high-end World of Warcraft ratings is pretty much all men, and it is not due to
Because it's a man's hobby, you dumb bitch.
That's a man.
That's a man?
Be
No.
a man. Otherwise, oh my God, this poor thing.
Well, she's fighting for the women.
No.
Yeah,
Maybe
I
she
didn't
just
know
really
that it was
wanted a
possible
buff.
to have fat voice, but you can have fat voice.
You can. It's a real thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is there skinny guy voice or skinny woman voice compared to fat voice? You know, I guess we do have fat voice
That's
here.
not even where she looks the worst.
Oh.
Oh,
She has that neck face.
It is not.
Fusion.
I
Yeah.
regret
Mm-hmm.
eating the pastry yesterday. I feared becoming that.
Do you regret the 3 eggs this morning too?
No, they were so good.
This woman wouldn't have a problem if she was just eating eggs.
That's true. Good point.
Well, depends on how many.
She just eats 3 dozen eggs whenever she has.
She's like Gaston.
All right, well, listen. Hold on. Let's just see. Maybe she has some important points here, guys.
Yeah,
All right?
yeah.
Just
Come
relax.
on.
Ratings is pretty much all men. And it is not due to women not being good at this game. Women are fantastic at this game.
Yeah, no shit.
Fantastic
Okay,
at this game.
let's hear
There's
it.
just one head. There's no neck.
Maybe,
She's like Mr. Potato Head.
you know.
Oh man.
Here's okay. I want to go back and actually look at this critically. Here we go.
Not due to women not being good at this game.
I
Women
can't
are
look at this
fantastic
just
at this.
critically because she's so gross.
But here's the
And
thing.
then
She
she
says,
makes herself worse with that green fucking hair.
well, that's blue there, Flash. But you know,
It's aqua.
I think I
Colorblind.
had color once.
oh yeah.
Yeah, it was a long time ago.
Were you also a girl?
Sometimes.
Okay.
There you go.
And tack on 3 bills.
Jeez.
All right. So hold on. She says it's not because women aren't good at the games. It's but here's the reality. It's because they're not good enough at the games. That's why they're not in
They're
the upper
fantastic at the
tier
game.
guilds. And
Okay, but they're not the
that's
top tier.
Really, what it comes down to.
Yeah.
Gaming is the most meritocracy thing there is. You're either good or you're not. So they're
kinda
looking
the
for
whole-
an
yeah.
opportunity to prop this up. Let's continue.
To women not being good at this game. Women are fantastic at this game. It is an ecosystem where women are
The smugness.
essentially held back. It's very similar to the corporate world where women and gender minorities have to do double the work or double the performance just to be seen as equal.
I'm so tired
No,
of how strong
not
we are,
true.
but I need systems made in place and everyone to change who they are and how they
Yeah.
behave around me. It's
I don't see it.
infuriating.
I don't see it.
Mitsu, your thoughts?
Wouldn't it?
Do not quote to me the scriptures. I was there when they were written. My God, this woman's complaining about World of Warcraft in the year of our Lord 2025. I used to play EverQuest, and that game was horrendously unforgiving to anybody who played it. And do you know how many women I played with? A fucking lot. I played with a lot of moms. I played with dads and their daughters. I played with so many people of whatever you want to say across every whatever you want to say. And they were all good at the game. Every time I hear this argument about how, like, oh, women are... Listen, they can be. It's just a measure of what is the number and what is the skill level. Eventually, they're probably going to get there. I'm sure the WNBA will eventually be profitable one day, maybe. But you have to give it... No.
Come on. Now you're... Okay. Now you're just talking craziness.
They need to learn how to dunk. They have great fundamentals, though. Everybody loves that reference.
So many good
Apparently.
fundamentals.
Oh, yeah.
So good.
Him have good fundamentals.
That's right.
But at the end of the day, like...
One of their biggest stars at Angel Reese. I never hear about her game. All I ever hear about is her complaining about her needing more money.
She's so racist.
The only clip I've ever seen of her is her missing shots and getting her own rebounds. I'm not even like trying to blow smoke or anything. This is literally all I've ever seen.
Somebody mentioned Brittany Griner, so I can get wound up on that.
Isn't it there
one,
like
too.
wasn't there like was it Caitlin Clark or something?
Time for that one.
All right, let's
There was
bring
something
it
like
back to
that.
this though. But she said that women have to work twice as hard to get to the same spot, right?
Okay, I mean it doesn't make any sense. In certain like corporate circuits or something like that, you can kind of see it because like people are, potentially gatekeeping your advancement, but no one is gatekeeping your advancement in the game. Like there's no mod, there's no GM who's like, women, the health for these bosses for female characters is like double. Yeah, they do twice as much DPS. Your characters are, half as good. It's just a fem debuff. It's like, no, like that's not the case. The game's the same for everybody. Okay? If you were, if your stats were the same, were on par, with, the other top people, your stats would be on par with the other people. Like, isn't that it? It would seem obvious, and I mean, it is obvious, which is why they have to say it in such a, like, smug, self-satisfied, self-confident, arrogant way, because that's the only way that you could even remotely be convinced to take them even a little bit seriously. Like, okay, well, this person's saying it so confidently. There's no way that it's as wrong as I'm thinking.
This lady is probably 28 going on 48 from her heart.
Metric tons, yeah.
But yeah, 40 metric tons. But what the hell do you think this lady knows? She's been told she's a victim her entire life. So she's over here, you are what you think you are in this situation. So for her to say something like this,
It's very similar to the corporate world where women and gender minorities.
I'm kind of surprised she's wearing white, to be honest, because she's so fat.
What's after Labor Day? She doesn't know fashion.
double the work or double the performance just to be seen as equal.
Something that I encountered a lot was toxicity towards me simply because of my gender. Comments about
Because you're an annoying. It doesn't have anything to do with your fucking
Because
gender.
it bothers you.
and
Yeah.
Sam, go and edit that out whenever
That's the other side of it,
or at least edit that word out. You can't say that word on YouTube there, Flash.
Oh, really?
You just beep it when you make the thing.
I know.
At the end of the day, the only reason they're saying what they're saying, homie, is because it bothers you. If it didn't bother you, they'd find some other reason to poke and prod.
I mean, that's
at you.
true.
That's
Obviously,
just
this
what people
it's
fucking
trash talk.
do.
Yep.
It's trash talk, baby.
Yep. It's all about
Jesus
getting that
Christ.
mental
Yeah.
game. Yep.
comments about me being good for a woman, or I should be excluded because I'm a woman.
Yeah.
So there we go. Hey, good luck. Good luck to them. And they're, Blas, maybe you should try out here for liquid women.
You don't
in
even have to
gaming.
be good.
Yeah. You get propped
That's
up.
the whole idea.
Why do I feel like if I go and play, I'd actually be better than a majority of the women?
You probably would be.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not even good, right? But I'd probably just be better at them.
Probably.
I think you should give it a go. See what happens.
Yeah, alright, but I have to do it with the blue wig and everything. I have the one in my closet. I've got the rainbow wig still.
There you go.
I think you
I'll be
should.
they, them.
That's a good
I
investment.
think this is all
Rainbow
Wave
wig.
pine cone. Let's go.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. I thought you were a GG'er, honestly.
Sure.
I've been upgraded. Thank you.
You're
Sure.
Yeah, your social credit score has gone up.
Yes.
So, real
Some
quick,
discounts.
a key component of this initiative, this is the to be approved.
I mean, like, this
bill.
is the thing. I'm like, how would you deal with this? Literally, the only thing I could think of would be to straight up give you like a buff. Where like, yeah, I have like a, I've got my female card. I've been verified as like trans or a woman or something like that. And therefore I get like an in-game buff of like, yeah, plus 2% to all DPS or some shit like that. You think, you wouldn't have the top tier people being like, oh yeah, I want that buff too? It's like, yeah, you'd see the exact same dudes, the autistic basement dwelling gamers, just like, everyone would go into a tournament with like wigs on, doing exactly the same shit, which would actually be pretty funny. I actually would like to see that. That would be pretty funny.
Which identifies and promotes guild that provides welcoming and safe environments for players of all identities and backgrounds. To achieve LWIW approved status, a guild must apply and undergo a thorough review process, ensuring they uphold the values of inclusivity and diversity, including having gender minorities in leadership roles.
Definitely.
Oh, they're the Anita Sarkeesian of
Yeah,
guilds.
they are.
Amazing. They found out how to get
Shocking.
the grift.
I saw this video the other day that talked about how the world literally changed due to Gamergate.
Yep.
And like the entire world changed because of that one fucking forum post. Amazing.
It's a fun time to be alive.
Mitsu, you
I was there.
Yeah, Des
whole
was
time.
saying that you know a lot about the Gamergate stuff.
Oh yeah, I've been keeping a track of what the gaming industry has looked like for a very, very long time, and everything that happened in Gamergate was just a natural outgrowth of everything that was coming. because we all saw how in bed the publishers were with the media of games journalism at that point.
That's
People
true.
like Jeff Keighley, who were making all these backroom deals for things that we weren't aware of. It's not that they were necessarily incorrect, and sometimes people did go a little too far, but at the end of the day, like, yes, it was about ethics. I literally just saw today that they were talking about the journal list, if you remember that. And the journal list was an outgrowth of what they found out about the game's journalist list from Gamergate. So everybody knew back then that all of these journalists were not necessarily conspiring, but they all talked with each other. I don't want to put cart before
Is it
horse
as
or
long
cause
as-
and effect, but
Is that list as long as the list of men that had sex with Zoe Quinn?
longer, but only because there's probably about 400 or so, and I imagine the list with Zoe Quinn, I think, came out to about 80, although it was Five Guys Burgers and Fries that brought this whole thing to the forefront in the first place. Oh, believe me, I am a walking gaming history machine. You want to go
Okay,
there?
hold on.
We can go there, my friend.
Mitsu, hold on. I gotta get your thoughts. All right.
Yeah.
You mentioned Jeff Keighley, right? He's kind of he's the vanilla, he's the Prius of the video game industry, right? He's safe.
Yes.
Right.
Very.
That's how Jeff Keighley has always been. And I've had my run-ins with Jeff over the years. I've mocked him vigorously many times because he is safe. Everything is just vanilla.
Oh, sure.
But you think that he had a big role in Gamergate that wasn't pronounced or something, or
He's the Ellen DeGeneres of the gaming industry.
No, it not necessarily. Old Dorito Pope, it's not that he necessarily had a direct role in Gamergate. For me, he wasn't really actually a big part of it. It was Zoe Quinn. It was, who's the one who's writing for Bloomberg now? Jason something. His name
Schreier.
is
Jason Schreier.
Jason Schreier. That fucking scumbag blocked me a million years ago and continues to pump out nothing, except for the one time he wrote about everything going on at Blizzard. That was the only piece of journalism he's ever done his entire life.
Buy my
It was
book.
worth watching. Yeah, buy my book. Buy my book. Buy my book.
Blocked by him too.
Yeah. It's almost a badge of pride on this point. He might, if I wanted to see what he would do, I'd go over Blue Sky, but fuck that, I'm not going there. So
No.
yeah. So I've watched all the players over the years. I remember when Anita Sarkeesian and Zoe Quinn went before the UN and cried about how everything was unfair, and then the UN literally took a very rare step of retracting everything that they said.
Oh, so is that actually what happened?
Really?
I didn't know they
Look it up,
retracted
labs.
it all.
Look it
Wow.
up. It's all true.
Wow. Okay. Maybe we need to do. Well, we've been talking about doing like a Gamergate
Going to the
deep
UN.
dive.
You let me know. I'm
That's pretty cool.
available for that.
Okay. All right. That'd be
remember.
All right. Then I want to see this other stuff from Yellow Flash. Yeah, talking about the Ghost of Yotei stuff. We've kind of mentioned this. We've touched on it a little bit today. But I want to see if there's any more news about it.
Ghost of Yotai, a game that's right around the corner. And Sucker Punch they're probably feeling the heat over there, I would say.
Yep.
These games are not cheap to make, and it needs to do
No.
well. One thing that it probably didn't need was all of the controversy that's been surrounding it, but it's tough to feel bad for them because a lot of this is their own damn fault.
It is.
Stop hiring activists. They will burn your companies down. I think some of them are finally figuring that out because, I mean, for the longest time, it's been all of them canceling people.
Sucker Punch studio head comments on firing dev who joked about Charlie Kirk's death. Yeah, this is September 19th. So, like, what? 9 days after? At least a week afterwards.
And attacking people and weaponizing the internet. And now the right's doing it and it's blowing up in their faces. It's blowing up in their faces big
Your
time.
fault.
And now all of a sudden, they care about free speech. It's
They
quite,
don't.
it's
Yeah,
quite the
they-
shit show
obviously
to
they don't.
watch. I have been watching all this go down like many of you, and it is something. It is something. But anyway, Sucker Punch decided to try to get out ahead of this. Now, one of the things that people have been calling for is for them to make a statement denouncing political violence, which they now have done.
Took them
I
that
don't
long to
know
do it.
where I'm at with this. Honestly, at this point, it's like I don't even want your apology. And I really don't want your game anymore.
Yeah.
But
Accurate.
for some people, I think this will be enough. I think them making a statement will be enough. And
I don't know. I think the people for whom it would be enough are not following this at all. I don't know how many of them are out there. Yeah, I'm of the opinion that a lot of games now basically only require a little bit of something for me to like just go, oh, okay, cool. I don't need to play it. Like Ghost of Tsushima, I have it on my computer right now. I'm relatively far into it. I haven't finished it. So the idea of a new game coming out, same thing with like Red Dead Redemption, same with like all of these other games. Getting a sequel to these games is like, oh shit, all right, like Hollow Knight. I never finished Hollow Knight. It's only now that the sequel has come out 10 years later that I'm finally finishing Hollow Knight. And Hollow Knight's a great game. It's a fantastic game. It's right up my alley. It's a Metroidvania. I love it, right? If I didn't finish that game before the sequel came out, the idea that, you know, a new sequel is going to make me have to go back and like replay this game, play this game, all this kind of stuff. It's like, dude, the reason this is happening is because these games are so enormously huge and games keep coming out. Like great games keep coming out, or at the very least, like good games, games that I want to play, want to check out. They keep coming out. So I just have an enormous backlog of games that are like all as good, if not better than whatever this new game is that's coming out. So if I have any reason whatsoever to not play that game, and Ghost of Yotei is like, okay, look, it's made by ideologues that apparently would be happy if I or someone, you know, with similar-ish opinions to me is murdered. Okay, cool. I don't need to play your game. Awesome. That's literally a weight off my shoulders. I'm looking for an excuse not to buy your game, not to play your game, because I've already got an enormous backlog of stuff that I would at least as much rather play. If not straight up, like I would prefer to play these games. I'd prefer to replay some older game from a better era in gaming history. I'd rather do that because like I haven't finished it. I haven't played it before. These are classics. I need to get it. Yeah. Like literally I would rather go back and play whatever. Like what am I thinking? The like Star Ocean, like Breath of Fire 4. I never played Breath of Fire 4. I have the PC remake version of that on my computer right now. I have that, right? I would prefer to play that than Ghost of Yotei. If you're telling me that Ghost of Yotei is giving me an excuse to just totally write it off the list of stuff that I ever have to play, awesome. Literally awesome.
if that's you, you know, that's your business. I'm not here to tell anybody what to do. I'm just telling you how I feel about it. And I will definitely be passing on this game. Really did want to play it, but it's just been soured for me because it's not just that longtime artist that they had working on this. It's the voice actor, some other things that have kicked up about this game. I'm just kind of turned off to it. And like I've said before, I have plenty of backlog to get through. I'm not hurting for a new game right now. And you know what? Yep. I'm not the only one in that situation. Most gamers have that problem. Some gamers have games they will never play that they bought. Mm-hmm. And I've decided to change it. So I've been going through a lot of games and taking my time with them and having fun, which is what it's supposed to be about. But anyway, let's go through the statement. So the statement itself is going to come from Brian Fleming, who is the studio head and co-founder of Sucker Punch. So here's the backstory.
Now he's a
the
studio
Sucker
head.
Punch artist Drew Harrison, a nearly 10-year
Wait a minute,
veteran.
hang on. So he's now the studio head and the co-founder, Brian Fleming. So the guy who was the studio head beforehand on, I'm guessing, Ghost of Tsushima, is not the studio head anymore? Well, that's not good for the game. That doesn't make me feel good about it. Again, I'm like, look,
I hope the
I have an
shooter's name
excuse.
is Mario,
Awesome.
so that Luigi knows his brother got his back. on the day of the assassination.
It's
Less
crazy.
than 24 hours later, she confirmed she was fired. The facts are accurate, Fleming told GameFile on Friday. When asked about the situation, Drew's no longer an employee here. I think we're aligned as a studio that celebrating or making light of someone's murder is a deal breaker for us. And we condemn that.
Kind of.
In no uncertain terms. That's sort of our studio, and that's kind of where we are.
Why are you equivocating? Why are you using all of these words that are just like, well, yeah, kind of, sort of. You know, we condemn that, kind of, sort of. It's because they have a lot more of those people in the studio, and they don't want to piss them all off. Because they are aware that those are the kind of people that will, like, go on in rampage and, like, look back through their entire Twitter X, you know, blog post, you name it, history to try to find something to get them canceled. So you're like, okay, we have to be a little bit careful about how we talk about these people because, you know, they were just celebrating a guy literally getting murdered. They will happily try to get us fired if they think that, you know, we're threatening them in any way, shape, or form, or even just pissing them off.
And that's it. Now they go on here to start talking about the backlash here.
What backlash?
Attack Grums. And they bring up the Bethesda situation, which, you know, Microsoft came out and said, we're aware that a subset of our employees are going wild and stupid right now. We're taking care of it, which means they're probably not going to do shit. Yeah, fuck Bethesda too, by the way. So that's where we're at.
Which one is the Bethesda one? I forget specifically.
Come out and make a statement. I mean, he knows it's going to get put out there like this, so it is a statement. The question is, how do you feel about it? I said this before they apologized. I don't even really want the apology. I'm just kind of turned off to the game now.
Yep.
I get that Antifa voice actor working there. I'm just sour to it.
Yeah, because it's like, look, it's a sequel to a game that was pretty good. I didn't love it. The Ghost of Tsushima, it was okay. It's fine. It's not the best game ever. It's okay. I'll probably try to finish it. It's worth finishing, I guess. But, you know, it's a sequel. It's not anything new. It's not anything super interesting. Apparently, the Ghost of Tsushima, the first game, ends on like a cliffhanger. So instead of continuing that storyline, they were like, all right, we're going to go with somebody else. And it's like, oh, damn, that sucks. Like maybe in the DLC, you get a continuation of the story. You get a wrap up of it. Maybe, I don't know. But it is just like, all right, I don't need an excuse to not play your game. You're giving me an excuse to basically go, cool, one less thing for me to worry about having to play, you know, down the line. That's awesome. I'm actually happy this is happening. I'm happy that I don't have to pick up your game. I don't have to look at it. I don't have to do anything with it. That's awesome. That's more time to play another game that I'd rather play.
Wasn't really crazy about the game's idea in the first place.
Yeah.
Like, you should have just had the guy from the first one. I'd rather played as him again. It's a mess. I feel like this game is response to the criticism they were getting, which is them being a bunch of white dudes playing it and how the media melted down. It feels like they're more trying to appease them than us, the people who loved the game and defended them, by the way. But that's their business.
Is the point.
I hope it works out for them.
And this is, you know, it's the same reason why they probably hired the people that they did, was to do that. And the thing is that, you know, I would imagine the people who are working on this, if they were hired for those reasons, if they were hired for basically PR reasons, they're probably not great at their job. And therefore, the game is not going to have the same level of quality as the one that was made when everyone was hired for just their performance.
But I'll be passing on it. But if you want to get it, like I said, that's your business. I don't hate you for it. But that is the latest. So let me Let me hear what you have to say about all of that in the comments. I would love to read your comments about this situation. Also, if you would, please like, subscribe, share the video, hit that notification bell, and we'll see you on the next one. Peace.
Oh, it was just a big ad? Oh, it was just like a big ad for his thing. Okay. I was going to say, that seemed like he had a lot left.
So at the moment, the left are having a problem with free speech in America.
So this Prisoner's Dilemma stuff, I wanted to watch this video because we saw Destiny talk about the Prisoner's Dilemma. So I want to see what the other side is saying on it.
America, and I mentioned on the stream yesterday, this is basically game theory. Specifically, it's the Prisoner's Dilemma that has been playing out in American politics and online and international politics for some time now. And the left have realized that actually, if they betray one side and don't uphold their side of the bargain, eventually through the iterative process of being stabbed in the back multiple times, the other side of the dilemma realize, well, actually, there's no point us upholding our side of the bargain. And so we're just going to do...
Okay, so Destiny was talking about it in terms of violence. In terms of violence and these types of things. He was like, okay, like, you know, you could have there's like 4 outcomes. Outcome 1 is peace, civil society. Outcome 2 is violence. Then he was saying outcome 3 and 4 are, you know, total, like, absolute violence, you know, from one side to the other and the other side against the other side, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, I don't know if that's... Like, it's not the case, because it's like you don't really have that. If you have an absolute violence type thing, as opposed to, you know, small amounts of political violence, it's like war is not one-sided in you know, in the way that this goes. Like it's just not the way it goes. You can have one side that's, you know, like victorious over the other, or like, you know, definitely a big dominant force over the other one, but that's not going to be like it's not like the way he was framing the argument was, I don't think, correct. Like, not actually correct to reality, more to reality.
The same to them, and therefore everyone gets the negative consequence. So if you're not aware, the Prisoner's Dilemma is an old thought experiment in which 2 prisoners are in prison and there's not enough evidence to convict both of them, but if either one talks, then if one talks and the other doesn't, then that person goes free and the other person gets like 3 years in prison or whatever. And that happens on either side. If neither of them talk, they only get like the minimum sentence of like a year in prison or something like that. And if both of them talk, then they both get a high sentence, like 2 years in prison, something like that.
Right.
And so the question is, do you stay silent or do you testify against the other person? And you don't know what the other person is going to do. So you run the risk of if you both testify against each other, then you're both going to jail. If you testify and the other guy doesn't, so you betray the confidence, essentially, you'll benefit and that person won't. And if you both just accept it, you'll get the minimum possible penalty or punishment for what you're doing. And that basically has been the situation between the left and the right in public discourse on the subject of free speech. Yes, it kind of sucks if your opponents can just say whatever they want about you and about the things you believe, and it might hurt your feelings. You have to just kind of suck it up, and they've got to suck it up. But at the end of the day, it's better for everyone, and everyone gets the sort of minimum level of suffering.
Right.
Or one person can decide, you know what, I know that guy's going to do the right thing and, you know, maintain the proper perspective. And that means I can stab him in the back. That means I can get everything I want and he loses everything he has.
Yeah, this is actually, I think, a better use of the Prisoner's Dilemma in terms of the current situation. It's the free speech stuff. Because, like, the violence stuff is not really wedded to reality, in the sense that if there is going to be some giant, enormous violence in these types of things, there's not like it's not going to be, oh man, like the left is going to genocide the right is going to genocide the left. It's like, no. It would be, hey, who's in political power right now? there you go. If you're trying to push that, if you're trying to push this into ramping up political violence and these types of things, like we're gonna enact a whole bunch of terrorist plots against the right. It's like, no, you're not. Like, it's not gonna happen. It's not, straight up won't happen. I know that because the right is in power. If you're gonna try to explode political violence, then you've given Republicans all the ammunition they need to do crazy crackdowns. So it's actually worse for you to be, trying to increase the temperature on your side. You should be going, no, 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 I disavow this completely, because even just tactically speaking, like, you're not in a position where you have the cards to negotiate this. You don't have it. You're not there.
And therefore, why wouldn't I do this? This is just me winning, right?
Mm-hmm.
And maybe in the single instance of that is a win for whoever betrays the confidence. But after the iterative process of decades now, about a decade of the left being completely against free speech in every way, the right is like, oh, right, okay, so we're against free speech. Everyone's against free speech. And if I keep advocating for free speech, I'm the one who keeps getting the maximum punishment, and they get absolutely nothing. And now the shoe is on the other foot. Actually, how about we both go to jail? How about we both suffer?
Yep.
And in fact, in this case, in the case
Exactly.
of Charlie Kirk's murder, the left decided to spout off, thinking that they had free speech, on the assumption that the right was going to play the prisoner's dilemma with them correctly and say, yeah, no, we just have to take the hit from that. And the right has said, no, actually, we don't have to do that. We can now betray you, and you can just fucking screw yourself, basically, which is what it's come down to. And this is a great comic because it really does summarize the problem that has been going on for years and years and years, and the number of betrayals of the prisoner's dilemma. And it's got to the point where the right's just like, no, don't care. And
I do like the
left
comic.
are not happy about this. Oh my god, the US right claimed free speech was sacred until the Charlie Kirk's killing. Well, okay. Interesting that. What's interesting, and this is representative broadly of left-wing thought on this at the moment, is we relied on you to do the right thing while we stabbed you in the back. We relied on you to be the dopey prisoner who decided not to testify, whilst we completely betrayed you over and over and over. And my God, you're not letting us betray you anymore. We're all going to suffer. In fact, in this particular case, we're asking we're asking you not to betray us. And suddenly, you're not interested in not betraying us.
Right.
Where are
And
you
so
anymore?
let's look at this. So this scenario here, like this matrix, all three of these three eventualities, any of these three can happen in a low trust society where you go, I don't really trust that the other person is going to have my back. Yeah. Both of these people, if they're rational, they can go, okay, yeah, the best thing to do is for each of us to, keep our confidence, not say anything, trust the other person. Yeah, that gets us the best thing in here. However, the trust and the rationality goes hand in hand. It's not enough to say, just be rational, and that will allow for the least amount of suffering. It's not. That doesn't work. Because rationality would also include, okay, well, what's the possibility that this person betrays me? If you have high trust in that person, then you can be rational and say, okay, so I, actually makes sense for me to trust that they won't say anything, and that therefore I won't say anything, and therefore we get the least amount of suffering. We both get, the best outcome as possible. All right. But if you're rational and you don't trust the other person, you'd say, okay, there's still a possibility that they stay silent, or, whatever, that they're going to trust me and they're going to keep their confidence. They're going to keep their word. That's a possibility. But that lack of trust means that all of these three eventualities, and because there's three eventualities, these are the more likely scenarios. It's more likely that there's going to be a lack of trust. And therefore, it's 75% of the eventualities are bad because of a lack of trust. And therefore, it's much more likely to live in a society that has a lack of trust. So, if you're going to be rational, it actually does, it's understandable why there's more of these eventualities. There's more possibilities that include a lack of trust than, an abundance of trust. So now that we've kind of gotten into this scenario where we go, okay, not only is it rational to say that I have a lack of trust that you're going to have, both of our best interests at heart, we'd go, no, I have trust that you will not. I trust that you will not have our best interest at heart. And therefore, actually, the scenario that gives us the least suffering is the one that gives me the less suffering. Yeah. Like this is the way we have to do it.
We're all going to suffer. In fact, in this particular case, it's the irony of all of this, obviously, is that the left admits, yeah, okay, it's the right that was actually those people who were protecting and committed to free speech, and now they don't care.
Which is fine.
And it's like, oh God, that's fascism, isn't it? It's like, no, that's not fascism. That's playing the game as it is, frankly, intended to be played. Either you both accept that the other one shouldn't be betrayed in this particular way, or it becomes a game of tit for tat, and now you just don't like that the shoe is on the other foot. But the shoe is on the other foot, and why is it that the right shouldn't kick you with it? I can't think of a compelling reason, to be honest.
Yeah,
we'll go through some of this Guardian article because it's just remarkable, absolutely remarkable. Watching the side that literally wrote articles, screeds books, and complaining
why cancel culture is good for democracy,
and arguing against the concept of free speech, going like, well, I can't believe the right doesn't believe in free speech. What a bunch of hypocrites. It's like, well, I mean, I guess you're not being hypocritical, you are just evil. So anyway, they say, unlike in many other countries, hate speech is protected by US law unless it incites imminent violence or constitutes a true threat. But did not deter the nation's top law enforcement officer, Pam Bondi, who suggested that a print shop employee who refused to print flyers memorializing Kirk could be prosecuted. Right. So bake the fucking cake is what we're saying, right? Like,
right.
This was a free speech issue, and the left came down hard on the compelled speech. And they've had compelled speech for ages. Trans women are women. Black.
This is true. And I mean, everyone on both sides said Pam Bondi was a dumbass and shouldn't have said this. Not only shouldn't have said this, but get rid of her, fire her. This is not, I hate the idea of hate speech. We hate that you're using it. Absolutely get rid of it. Stop saying this. Stop, and I agree with all of that. She's a complete moron. She's not helping. But the issue that she was raising in terms of, and we talked about it earlier, not today, but on an earlier stream, where I was saying, yeah, this is very similar to the idea of, a bakery, like a Christian bakery, being able to deny service to someone because they're like, oh, we want you to make a wedding cake for our gay wedding. And the Christian bakery goes, nah, I refuse service. I don't want to do that. It's against my beliefs. Okay. Pretty sure that Supreme Court ruling came down on they have to make the cake. Let me double check that actually. I'm gonna double check that. Okay. Did the Supreme Court rule you had to bake the gay wedding cake, I'm going to say. Let me double check here. Let me see if it says. Okay. No, the U.S. Supreme Court did not rule that a baker had to bake a cake for a same-sex wedding. Excellent. Good. I'm glad. That was the case. But obviously, they said very much, yeah, you have to bake the cake. You have to bake it. Yeah. It's like they have to do it. Now, that's not to say that, if one person were to go off script, because I don't know if I think it was the Office Depot person did get fired for not doing that. because they were basically, it was not company policy to deny people the stuff. So they were going against, they were going against the company policy. They were going against their jobs. So they got fired for that. And, that makes sense to me. Yeah. So it's good that they're able to do that.
Black Lives Matter, all of these sorts of things have been examples of compelled speech from the left. So not free speech, not something that the right was happy with, but again, the dilemma has been broken. We're now in the position where we're just backstabbing each other until one drops dead, basically. And so, okay, well, now you're going to accept the right is completely in its own right to say, no, actually, you are going to bake the Charlie Kirk memorial cake, because compelled speech is a precedent that the left has set here. Anyway, Bondi walked that back because there were obviously there were lots of conservatives who were like, well, actually, we probably shouldn't be doing that, which honestly I do actually agree with. But still, the point being, I agree with it for my reasons, not because of anything to do with them. It's a remarkable turn from prominent American conservatives who, until Trump's return to power in January, had long complained of a censorious left-wing cancel culture, quote unquote. Well, I mean, we have been cancelled over and over and over and over by the left.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing. I don't mind calling it cancel culture. I have no problem with it, but you do need to frame the idea as you have a gun, you've been using it and pointing it at, one side without any consequences for a decade, and now that other side got the same weapon and is now pointing it in your direction, going, hey, we'll use this on you. Yeah, so I mean, the cancel culture, thing, like that comic that he had, we're not going to go back into it. But yes, so the comic he had is, now both people have the cancel culture gun pointed at each other. All right. And it's just that one side has, right now, a bigger version of it. They have more, I don't know if say institutional power, but they have more cultural power behind them because they have, the cultural moment. This is currently like a conservative cultural moment, and they have more institutional power, and they have the weight of moral authority behind them because one of their leading figures was just assassinated for political reasons. So, their cancel culture weapon is much more effective right now. It will do more damage. It will, be employed more effectively, however you want to describe it.
For reasons that honestly I think most people just viewed as totally spurious. And yet, here we are. The reason that YouTube has all of these sort of rules regarding things that you can talk about, the sort of narratives you can talk about, is because when what's her face, Susan Wojcicki was in charge of YouTube, she, being left-wing, imposed a bunch of speech codes, which of course only hit the right. They didn't hit the left. And this was a massive issue. I mean, look at the amount of people who were banned from Twitter for various reasons, deplatformed for all sorts of thoughts, things they thought. And instead of accepting that part of free speech is just having things said that contradict your narrative, the minimum possible punishment for having the shared benefits, the left are like, no, just deplatform. Like there are people with huge platforms, huge channels, who just got completely wiped off the internet over really trivial things that seem really trivial in retrospect. I'm reminded of Dave Cullen, Computing Forever, because he wasn't happy about the COVID narratives, and YouTube's like, yeah, 500,000 subscribers or however much he had, that's just gone. No, you're not allowed to criticize the precious COVID narrative. I was like, oh, okay, well, that's just the way that goes. So why exactly, now the shoe's on the other foot, are you not being cancelled? Why do you think you deserve not to be cancelled? I mean, like in the wake of the Jimmy Kimmel firing, again, he wasn't cancelled. He still has PayPal. He still has Stripe. He still has all of his social media platforms. Right. He still is going to probably be someone you see on television. It's just that his failing late night show was taken off the air.
Which is almost certainly like, non-profitable. Like Stephen Colbert is not profitable. He's fired, but he's not really fired because he's still working there for another year, and he's getting paid. He's getting paid what, $20 million a year for a show that was never profitable. and he didn't take a pay cut. So I mean, it's like we don't care. Oh my god, oh the cancel culture. And this is the Stephen Colbert stuff. Is not even the cancel culture stuff. They were just like they wanted to say that it was because Trump came out afterward and was like, yeah, this guy's not funny. I think most people agree with that.
Yeah, because frankly, it wasn't making money, and this was a good pretext for it to be done. Now they're like, well, I mean, I can't believe this culture has come for us. It's like, well, I'm sorry. This is what you did. This is the world you made, and you've created millions of people who are genuinely furious and are happy now to be the ones on the other side of it, putting the boot in. I love this.
Yeah, because this is the other side of this. Like, I think there are still a lot of people on the right who are principled about free speech, and they kind of have intuitively the same opinion that I have, which is, look, if you've got a weapon, you're going to use it against me. The only way to counter that is for me to have, the same weapon and, threaten to use it against you. It's the only way we stop, I stop you killing me is by threatening for me to kill you and going, hey, the only way we stop, fighting is if we each have a legitimate reason to think that we'll lose. So that's it. It's a deterrent argument. Then there are the people, for sure, because there's going to be people like this on the right that, I mean, to be perfectly honest, probably not as many, because just the way these things work out. There are going to be some people who are on the right who are like bullies, who just want to use cancel culture because they have like a sadistic, misanthropic. They want to inflict suffering on other people. They want to enforce their will and dominance over somebody else. The reason I say that there's less of those people on the right is because those people, they go where the power is. They're aware that, hey, guess what? For the last 10 years, that ability has been the sole property of the left. And therefore, the vast majority of those people that are, that wanted to do that, moved over to the left and have been there for the last 10 years. Now maybe they'll change their tune and they'll, say, oh, okay, now the shoe's in the other. Now, the Charlie Kirk thing really just, completely changed my mind. And then they're going to go and do crazy ass shit for the right. And we need to look out for those people, because they're going to come out of their woodwork, and they are probably going to be the people that, go for people that are, completely illegitimate targets for any of this kind of canceling stuff. And we don't want to, do the same thing. We do not want to lose the sort of moral authority that we've gained from Charlie Kirk's death. So we do need to look out for those people. But like I said, I don't think there's as many out there on the right now. And that kind of is a good... It's indicated well by the fact that, there have not been a lot of insanely spurious, just like, cancelings for people. There's very few of them. I don't even know if I can think of any in terms of like ones that have actually gone through and done anything.
The left-wing cancel culture, they reframe that too as consequence culture. Well, who invented that term? Who invented that term? You fucking slimy pieces of shit. Who invented that term?
Yeah.
That was a term that was bandied around in like 2018 after people started getting cancelled for saying things against, like, Black Lives Matter or feminism or whatever it was, and woke nonsense. And they're like, well, it's consequences. It's just the consequence of your own actions. It's not the government censoring you. It's the private corporations. They can do what they like. This is consequence culture. I'm just so over giving a...
They seem happy to reframe that as consequence culture. And I was like, no, they're throwing that back in your face, dude. They're memeing on you.
Flying fuck about these people appealing to my morality as their shield for the shield for their bad behavior. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I don't care. You get what you deserve. You broke the agreement. You violated the prisoner's dilemma. You decided, no, backstab, backstab, backstab. So one side gets the very maximal punishment. No, not on anymore. Not on. We're both getting the punishment now. until you realize that that was unacceptable and you fucking apologize, frankly. Take some accountability for yourself. Again, that's another. This isn't cancel culture. This is accountability. Is another way they'd frame it. Nancy Mace, a House representative, sounded a lot like the progressives when she is often decried for their political correctness. When she declared last week that free speech isn't free from consequences. Yeah, where have I heard all of this before? Free speech doesn't mean free from all consequences, despite what some conservatives argue. Says NBC News back in 2019.
Oh, that's weird.
You made your bed. Roxanne A, cancel culture doesn't exist, but consequence culture does. Oh, you made your fucking bed. You can get fucked in it. You can get absolutely fucked in it. You deserve everything that you're getting right now. Everything. You totally deserve it. Back in the day, I was like, oh yeah, well, I actually think everyone should be online. I don't think people should be having things taken away. I actually think at some point in the future there will be a kind of digital bill of rights which guarantees access to certain platforms, regardless of who you are, regardless of what you've done, because these will be considered something of a human right. And until we get there,
yeah. And again, I think I'm going to be optimistic, and I'm going to say we are going to be moving in that direction. It's just that, this is the way it has to be done, is that, we have to be aware that each side has the ability to, nuke the other. So the only way that we get freedom of speech is, a sort of mutually assured destruction view of the world, which is maybe not ideal. We would like it if, there were no nukes and we didn't need that to enforce this idea of free speech. But unfortunately, it seems like we do.
I'm going to in no way mourn for these people. Yeah, you chose this.
That's true.
You thought you were going to be in the driving seat of culture forever. You thought you were going to have the power forever. But it turns out you don't. And now the shoe is on the other foot. The gun is in the other hand. And you're like, well, I can't believe this is happening to me. Well, I'm sorry. I can't believe you don't think you fucking deserve it. This is happening to you. And like I said, I'm in no way going to mourn. And until you realize that you have violated the prisoner's dilemma, and actually you're like, okay, we are going to need some kind of digital bill of rights, which again, people like me have been arguing for a long time. So even the worst people online, like Hassan and Destiny, get to keep that thing. So you notice Hassan and Destiny got demonetized recently. How does that feel, Destiny? Like he's hardly been kind to me when bad things have happened to me. And Hassan is just worried about being taken off the internet entirely. He's absolutely bricking it. And I'm not surprised, because they have been awful in every way, shape, or form. And so again, we can either have the awfulness on both sides, and we'll just have to live and learn to bear it, or we both get stabbed, and then until one side decides, right, okay, I'm going to try and do the right thing now, and gets absolutely shut down by the other, or we can get to the point where everyone's just having a terrible.
So that's the thing. It's like, so the only way you get this, the best outcome, the only way you can get it is either through trust. I trust this person's going to stay silent. Hey, I'm going to trust that he stays silent. We both have trust, and therefore we can both rationally say our best option is to shut up, and we get the best outcome. Or, each of these people has a deterrent against the other. Each of these people has, a very reasonable, deterrent against the other. That's it. That's the only way we can get this. Trust is obviously best because we don't have, an underlying threat of violence, even though we kind of always do. But let's say that we don't in this scenario. But if that's the way we get to the best outcome, we get the best outcome.
Time. I think probably best to go for the first one, right? The very first thing where it just kind of sucks that guy said that thing. Okay, I don't like him. I'm just going to click on something else and watch something else, blah, blah, blah. But so anyway, this is one of those things. Many conservatives are now championing a public campaign to get fired from their jobs any Americans who made light of Kirk's death or disparaged him in his politics and death. Oh, what, like what happened during the George Floyd riots? Like what happened during 2020 and Black Lives Matter riots? Sorry, get fucked. Just absolutely fuck yourselves. I'm sorry to keep swearing, but I am just so livid at the idea that these, and there's no point calling them hypocrites because they don't care, but these abject hypocrites are like, oh well, I can't believe it's finally happening to us. A load of people who I know and liked were affected by this. It's like, yeah, loads of my friends were affected by this. Back when you were merciless towards us. Absolutely merciless. And so I'm not even celebrating. I just don't care. I just don't care. You get what you deserve, and you deserve everything that you get. So honestly, like I said, I'm not in any way going to try and be like, oh, well, guys, maybe we're going too far. No. Until they understand that the prisoner's dilemma of free.
Again, I will say that, we're going too far. If we're going too far in certain things, which is again like the Pam Bondi stuff. The Pam Bondi stuff, I'm very happy to say, yep, nope, person went way too far, got shut down, never went forward with it because they got correctly, just routed immediately where they said, nope, absolutely not, like fire this person. She's screwing up. She's making everybody look bad. Get rid of it. Get these words out of her mouth. Shut her the hell up. But I'm doing that for the reason of I want this to actually work for like a better long-term solution.
Free speech has been absolutely violated, then they need to keep getting stabbed in the back. They need to keep finding themselves fired. It's just like they were doing to us. Until they realize that we're in this position now where everyone just does the maximal damage to one another that they are capable of doing, and actually that's not the most favorable way for us to exist, frankly, as a society, online or anywhere else, and they accept that we are going to have some kind of digital bill of rights, then no, keep going. They have to learn their lesson, and they're going to have to learn it the hard way. So, like I said, no sympathy from me. I would show you no mercy.
All right, and then we have another one over here from Serpent ZA. It's not Z, Z. Even though everybody says Z, but it's Z. But yeah, China is a zero trust society, and this explains everything. I am just curious about this stuff. Every once in a while, I like to check in with him to see what China's doing.
Just a low trust society. China is a zero trust society. Sometimes it's better to show you something than to describe it. So let's take a look. Here we have a middle-aged street sweeper who's fallen down, and a woman comes to her rescue. I mean, I'm sure you would do the same thing, right? You see an elderly or middle-aged woman collapse, you'd run over and try to help her out, at least figure out what's going on. Well, now you're going to know why people don't do this in China. Because after the woman helped her, she went off, fetched some of her, I presume, family members, and they came over and demanded compensation, blaming the woman who helped her, saying that she is the one who caused her injury.
Yep.
I mean, luckily it's all caught on camera, because otherwise this poor woman, this good Samaritan, would have actually been taken to court, would have had to try to prove that she was innocent, and most likely the judge and the court would have made her pay some kind of medical compensation towards this trickster, this old hag. And this is why you see all those countless videos of people who've fallen down in China and nobody goes to help them up. But it's not just this that creates...
And again, I mean, this is unfortunately where we're going towards, like the Arena Zarutka stuff. This is, it's the start of that. When you're seeing that stuff, like obviously there's extenuating circumstances there where it's like, okay, you don't want to like get up, you don't want to make yourself a target, you don't want to do. I get it, I totally understand it, but it's the other side of the what was the guy? Is it Daniel Penny? Yeah, I think that's it, something like that. He goes and he acts like a fucking hero and restrains some lunatic, and then unfortunately kills him. And people are like, he was a racist, he was a, horrible person, blah, 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 blah. It's like, okay, this person put their life on the line to, defend other people. Yeah, like if there was a Daniel Penny on the Arena Zarutska train, is that person going to, for sure, do the same thing? Are they going to put their life in line, defending this other person? I'd like to think yes. But I mean, they like are still calling the Daniel Penny guy like a racist murderer. He needs to go to prison. Like, I would imagine I'm sure he's gotten death threats. That is a chilling effect on like trying to actually help your fellow citizens. The safer thing to do is just go, nope, not my problem, not me. I'm not the one who got stabbed, so I'm just gonna go about my day. Yeah, and it's like, and this is the end state where it's like it's not these big crazy explosions of, like random violence from like lunatics on the street. It's gonna be just all day, every day, everybody trying to take advantage of everybody in the most aggressive, nonstop, petty ways. And it's like, yeah, okay, that's to be avoided.
It's this zero trust society in China. There are a lot more things, and I have a list, and I'm doing this for a reason, guys. Stick with me. Deep within the corporate offices of a data broker, something is happening behind closed doors.
Huh.
We're out to steal your info because I am a target of the Chinese government. So I don't only have the Chinese government and all their cronies after me, but
I
all
will
sorts
have
of
to
funny
skip.
zealots
I'm
and
gonna skip your ad. I'm
use
sorry.
code Winston. And now back to the show.
I'm gonna skip your ad. I'm sorry.
We're gonna start
You got
out
paid.
with food safety.
Good for you.
Food safety
I know
in
this
China
is
is a
the
gamble.
most. Holy
It's like
this
playing
is the
Russian
worst.
roulette. You've got
This
gutter
is
oil,
so
which is
bad.
literally used oil scraped out of the sewers and resold.
Yeah,
Fake
it's
beef,
so bad.
zombie meat, food poisoning happening now at all the schools and colleges around the country.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, locals just assume that they're going to be lied to, so they have to build their own sort of little interactive map of safe shops to go to, safe markets, restaurants that they can trust. And of course, they spread the word in amongst their friends and family because you can never trust the food quality in China. Culture Quickie with Serpent ZA. This
Yoik.
poor woman tried to help this old man across the street and was rewarded with a punch to the face, all because he thought she was trying to steal from him. Zero trust society. Surveillance instead of trust is the next thing we're going to talk about. China doesn't build trust, it builds surveillance. Cameras are on every corner, in elevators, on buses. You need a real name ID for SIM cards, hotels, trains, even online comments. You cannot register your social media account without it being tied to your actual ID. You cannot do anything online unless it's tied to your face. You can't even go to an internet cafe without registering with your real name ID. The entire system assumes everyone is lying until proven innocent, and people just accept it because they don't trust each other. It's actually quite a nightmare. It's like living in 1984, except the problem is if you actually have a problem and maybe someone steals from you or someone does something, surveillance never really helps. Trust me, I've had things stolen from me. Lots of people I know have had things stolen from them in China. When you try to look at the surveillance footage, it either was broken or it's not clear enough or they don't care. But you say anything bad about the government or something that somebody who's connected to the government doesn't like, that surveillance is suddenly crystal clear and works perfectly. So it works against you. Public shaming as control. Instead of building trust, schools and workplaces build fear. Bad students and lazy workers get their names and photos posted on public boards. It's humiliation as discipline. No encouragement, no support, just fear of being next.
Damn.
Because in a zero trust society, fear works better than trust. No one trusts the police.
That seems right.
Police are seen as predators, not protectors. They demand bribes, ignore crimes, and always side with locals over foreigners. And I'm not just talking about foreigners, I'm talking about people that are outside of the given city or town that you may be in. So if a Chinese person comes in from Hunan and they go into Guangdong, the Guangdong police will always side with the local Guangdong person. I've seen this happen countless times. Most victims don't even report crimes.
The funny thing is, like, you can literally see this in like, if you ever read a Chinese novel, if you ever read any of these things, it's so prevalent. It's like a cliche. And it's like, okay, well, why is this a cliche? It's a cliche because it's that inaccurate. It's that, like, true to life that it's super normal for the police, for the local magistrate, mayor, whatever, to be just wildly corrupt and try to like steal the other person's whatever. Like again, I'm reading like fiction novels, so it's like steal their magic egg or their golden finger thing. They're trying to do it because that's what they've done forever. And the reason that that's in the story is because if it wasn't, it would be unrealistic to the Chinese people reading it. It would be like, what? This guy found something valuable and no one's trying to steal it from him? That doesn't sound true at all. That's more ridiculous than the fact that this is like a magic cloud that allows him to fly or whatever. It's like, yeah, it's like that's more reasonable than the local police officer not trying to shake him down for money. Yeah.
Because they expect to be blamed for them. Law enforcement doesn't build trust, it destroys it. Next thing, no one trusts doctors. Hospitals in China feel more like chaotic marketplaces. Doctors get bonuses for selling expensive drugs, so they push pills you don't need or skip real tests entirely. I mean, I know this. My wife's a doctor. I used to train doctors in China. You get these very annoying reps that go to the clinics, and they'll be working for a drug company that sells generic drugs or fake drugs. So, they'll package it as if it's a real, I don't know, ibuprofen type thing. And then they'll go and sell it with the real branding and everything, but it's a generic knockoff. And then they make sure that the lead doctor gets kickbacks, and then everybody gets in on it. Everybody is getting a kickback. And of course, the more drugs you sell, the more money you make. So the doctors will prescribe extra medicine that's unnecessary. And unfortunately, because of all this mistrust, doctors are very often attacked and even murdered in China.
Damn.
This is, it's really...
Holy shit. In China, a 2019 survey by Ding Shang Yuan, I don't know if I'm probably not pronouncing that right, a website for healthcare professionals, showed that 85% of doctors had experienced violence in their workplace. Damn.
Really quite a sad state of affairs. When people go to the hospital, it's all about making sure that your relative gets taken care of. So, if your relative's going in for surgery, you will pay the doctor a bribe. It is commonplace. Even my wife, who is a doctor who went in for surgery, had to give the red packet to her colleague who was going to operate on her. It's just the way it is. It's become part of the culture. Even if you don't see it as a bribe, you still do it anyway as kind of like a good luck gesture. You're like, I'm going to go under the knife. I'm going to pay the doctor who's going to, cut me up because I'm giving them an incentive to do a good job, because I'm giving them a little extra money on the side. But because of this, if you pay the doctor and you do all this, you grease all the palms, you go through all the steps, and then the patient dies, well, the families usually feel incredibly resentful, and they often go into the clinics and actually kill doctors. There's even a word for it, now, and it's become such a big deal that doctors have gone out and protested the fact that they're being targeted for violent attacks and murder. A huge issue in China. So when it comes to hospitals and doctors, it's more about outsmarting each other before someone either rips you off or kills you. Zero trust society. Fear, not trust, runs the system. Here's the truth. China doesn't run on trust. It runs on fear. People don't follow rules because they respect them. They follow rules because they're scared. The government doesn't trust the people. The people don't trust the government. And nobody trusts each other. That's why life in China feels like it's held together with fear, a little bit of glue, and duct tape. If you've lived in China, you've felt this. If you're a Chinese person, you've felt this. We all know it's true.
It's bad.
But it's hidden so well, and the propagandists are working so hard to try and prove that China is a high-trust society these days.
What?
In fact,
Really?
what they're trying to do is jump and ride on the coattails of countries like Japan, which do have a high-trust society.
They really do.
If you drop your wallet in a city in Japan, there's a high chance you'll get it back. Somebody will hand it in to the police. If you drop your wallet in a city in China, there's a zero chance you'll get it back.
Yep.
Because it'll be stolen. That's just the way it goes. I would like to see this change I would love to see China develop a high trust society, but unfortunately, that's just not going to happen. I don't think
No.
it's going to happen in my lifetime. However, if we talk about these things, if we
I
acknowledge
agree.
that these problems exist, very
Almost
often that
certainly
can
not gonna
lead to a
happen.
solution. It can at least try to push the authorities in that direction, try to make them enforce Good Samaritan laws, for instance, help them stop this endless cycle of people taking advantage of and cheating each other. Anyway, guys, next time someone tries to tell you that China's a high trust society, go tell them to jump in a lake, because you know what?
They're
It's
lying.
a bunch of bollocks.
That's cool. All right. We kind of already knew that, but I mean, it's good to hear it double checked.
I said, you're not moving to London, you're moving to 19th century Russia, basically. You know, it's a new form of serfdom. I don't think Gary Stevenson shops enough. He's only got one mug. I keep watching his podcast. Gary, buy a second mug, help the economy out a bit, right? But I think we fundamentally have to hear him out. We've got to get back into the office because we need to bail out Pret-a-Manger.
Do we need to hear out Gary Stevenson, Gary's economics guys? I don't think so. I will say I think his whole premise is that inequality is the root of all problems. And I'm like, okay, you have to prove that. You have to prove to me that you have to explain to me why inequality is bad. I'm open to the idea because I have some of my own sources and stuff, but I want you to convince me as if I was totally against the idea. Bring me over, explain it, tell me why it's bad. Okay? There are some studies, there are some good actual legitimate evidence-based arguments for why economic inequality is not the best, but you need to actually explain that. Maybe he's got a video that does that. I haven't seen it. However, he's basically always arguing from the perspective that like everyone totally agrees on that 100% already. And just, you know, it's a fact. It's a fundamental fact that he bases his entire argument on. It's not. It shouldn't be. Plus, I will also say the idea that inequality comes before all of these other economic issues, and all these other economic issues is basically an effect or like a symptom of the disease of inequality, strikes me as incredibly stupid. Like it just doesn't make sense. It's like, no, inequality is in and of itself a product of a system. Okay, like it's not, yeah, it's like so you're trying to fix a symptom rather than, you know, the other side of it. And that's like that really is inherently what he's trying to do. Now, the fact of the matter is that, you know, the system that you're dealing with, the economic system you're dealing with, that is really, it's the thing that caused this inequality. And it causes inequality through a number of different, you know, mechanisms. And the system itself is not doing well. So you kind of have to, you know, reorganize the system. Now, here's the thing. Let's say you reorganize the system and it solved all of these other issues, which I would argue are bigger. You know, they're more existential threats to the UK economy. And in a similar sense to the US economy, they're not exactly the same, but let's say they're similar enough. If you fix those, inequality still existing is perhaps not as big of a deal, you know? And the other side of it is also trying to fix inequality in an economic system is going against God and nature. It's not to say you shouldn't do it, it's just to say the difficulty of attempting it is so unbelievably high, and your likelihood of failure is so unbelievably high that it's one of those things you probably shouldn't be addressing first off. It's not a problem that you should be addressing first. That is like tertiary, like we fixed all of these other problems. All of these other problems have great solutions. We've all, you know, worked on, we've all agreed to, we've all, you know, fiddled with, and we've dialed them in perfectly. Now we can take care of this inequality stuff way down the line, right? because that's the stuff where it's like, okay, this stuff is going to be super insanely difficult because inequality is baked in. It's baked into nature. We're all a part of nature. It's baked into biology. It's baked into everything. It's just baked. It just is. It is in the same way that the free market just is. You know, free market just is in the same way that evolution just is. It's just a logical consequence of the state of reality. So inequality belongs to that same category. It's just a natural expression of the way in which reality works right now. So to try to address it is basically going, we're going to try to straight up like rewrite the laws of all physics and reality. And somehow we're going to do it, and somehow it's going to be good. I don't believe you. I don't think you can do that. The government can't do basic shit like teaching people to read. Why would it be able to rectify a fundamental, basic tenet of nature and reality? It's not going to. It's not going to.
You know, after COVID, I said, you're not bailing out Pret a Manger, you're bailing out the Duke of Westminster. If your parents own a bloody 6-bedroom house in Beaconsfield, is it actually worth getting a graduate job? 50% of your NHS cashback, I think, happens in the week preceding your own death.
Hello and welcome to the Institute of Economic Affairs podcast.
Yeah. Now, I will say, again, as always, this is the UK. The UK, apparently, as I look more into it, as I read, as I listen to more podcasts and people who are talking about the UK, living in the UK, talking about the UK economic situation specifically, as opposed to kind of like the West in general or the US in particular, the UK is way worse off. I'm happy to argue that it is because of the NHS. I'm happy to argue it's because of their increased socialized system. They have much more socialism in their government than the US does. And this is why their problems are greater and also probably more intractable than the US's. That plus the fact that, again, you've got the crazy amount of like authoritarianism, the safetyism, the fact that, people are getting cops coming to their homes for a Facebook post that like upset someone. That seems silly. It seems very silly to me. So I think the UK might be screwed. I think, reform has to really do an incredibly good job and really has to push and really has to do some great stuff. Do I want to watch this or do I want to watch the Gary's economics stuff? You know what? I might watch the Gary's economics stuff instead. Will reform win the next UK election? I really don't like watching the Gary's economics videos. I don't find him to be a charismatic guy. I find him to be a prick. And I don't like him. I don't like the way he talks. Like, just aesthetically, it's the same thing for Trump for me. I don't like Trump talking. I don't like to watch any of his videos. I don't find him to be a charismatic figure. I know other people do, but I don't. So I watched the Gary's economics stuff in protest. But I'm just gonna see like the intro for this. I want to see.
Okay, welcome back to Gary's Economics. Today we're going to predict.
Now here's the thing. Him in his kitchen and doing this stuff. His kitchen is his studio, and he says it's real. How much of an asshole do you have to be to take up your entire kitchen workspace? I think he's got kids and stuff, right? Are they like, okay, little Timmy, daddy's got to record a video today, so if you get hungry, stay in your room and shut the hell up. Come on.
Next election, and we are going to answer the question, will reform win? Okay, so
will reform win? I mean, fingers crossed, sure hope so. I sure hope it happens earlier. I hope it happens. They're projecting potentially 2027. That would be great. Because again, the UK, it needs a shakeup. The Green Party has been tried. You already had Jeremy Corbyn. as prime minister. Okay? Didn't help, did he? Didn't really help out your situation, did he? No, he didn't. So the odds that he'll do it next time, next go around, probably zero. Probably less than zero. There's no possibility that's going to happen. He's definitely going to make stuff worse. So you need the reform to win. Hopefully it happens fast. Hopefully it happens before stuff gets, even worse. But, the trajectory you're on in the UK, it probably is going to get worse. And reform is, I would say, best positioned to gobble up all the people that are going to be pissed off. That's probably a good thing for the UK in general. Now, I don't know if the Reform Party is going to be capable of, actually doing what it needs to do to fix stuff. I don't know. I really don't. I don't know if Nigel Farage is that person to actually be able to do it. I'm not sure. Hopefully he gets some good people around him and he can figure it out. But certainly, according to all the polling currently, they are likely to win.
I want to make a prediction about politics. The first thing I always do is I check the odds. The betting odds are not always right, but I think it's always a good idea to look at what the market thinks and then compare it to what you think and see if you can understand what the difference might be. So I look at these odds a lot. Obviously, I used to be a trader. I'm looking at the markets a lot, but I also do, now I'm interested in politics, look at the betting markets for politics a lot. So we're going to flash.
I agree. They are, I shouldn't say usually, they're always the best predictors. It's not to say that they're 100%, but they are the best.
To Betfair, and I look at the market. It's a little bit difficult to translate, so I'll do it for you. This here shows the betting market for who will get the most seats at the next UK election. These two red and blue numbers, they show a range of probabilities.
So, okay. Back all, lay all. So essentially, yeah, Reform is absolutely in the lead by, a good bit. Actually a good bit.
And if you divide one by the number, you get the probability. I'll do the maths for you. What this says is that Reform have almost exactly 50% chance of getting the most seats at the next election. And Labour have, that's probably going to be something like about 32% chance of getting the most seats. And then you've got the Conservatives down at, that's going to be about 12%. And then there's about a 2% chance for the Lib Dems and a little bit for a few other parties. So basically, the betting market thinks that Reform have almost exactly 50% chance of getting the most seats at the next election. And that probability has been steadily climbing really over the past few months. I've been following it. Does that mean Reform will win the next election? Now, this is a little bit more complicated because in the UK we now have a multi-party system, which is kind of amazing. We've never really had one before. Because the main two historic parties, Labour and Conservatives, are very unpopular.
Aren't they the Tories? Isn't the Conservative Party actually called the Tories? Like Labour? Are they called maybe it's just the British political parties. We're loosely, I guess not. So it is actually the Conservative, it is actually the Conservative Party. And colloquially, the Tories. Okay, I was correct.
I'm sick of...
No, we're not doing that.
Now, we're going to get a situation in the next election where really a lot of parties get a lot of seats. Most seats will go to Reform and Labour. But
That's the point. Yeah. Now, and this is the thing. So, if they were to break it down where they were to say, hey, the person that's going to get the most seats versus, we think Reform's going to get 50% of the seats. We think Labor's going to get 30% and blah, 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 blah down the line. That would be probably a better thing. And you can kind of look at it that way, which is basically to say it's almost a certainty that, what would we think? it's almost a certainty that Reform would get, the majority of the seats because, they'd have 50%. That's not the way that these specific odds are set up. It's just saying that, yeah, you know what? In terms of, all outcomes, Reform absolutely most likely to win the most seats.
Will probably still get a few. The Liberal Democrats will get a big chunk like they did last election. And I think the Greens will also get a decent chunk for the first time ever. And I think because Labour will be unpopular, the SNP, the Scottish National Party in Scotland, will get a lot of seats as well. Now,
Say Labour? Hang on.
The SNP for the first time ever. And I think because Labour will be unpopular, the SNP, the Scottish National Party in Scotland, will get a lot of seats as well. Now, the betting market thinks, we can also ask the betting market whether it thinks anyone will get an overall majority. So the way it works in this country is they'll get a number of seats. Historically, the winning party almost always gets a majority, which means more than 50% of the seats.
Right.
But because in the next election the vote will be so divided, there's a good chance that whoever wins, be it Reform or Labour, who it will almost certainly be one of those two parties, neither one will get an overall majority. So we can also look at the betting market here for overall majority, and what you see...
No, I mean, I think with the actual odds, the way that they are, 50% to 32%, actually, it's probably closer to the fact that it will be two-party. It will be, I mean, it's possible that... So, like, the odds here that the Conservatives eat up some of Reform, that's a possibility, but Conservative is so down, is so incredibly, low, that they're probably not going to be eating up a lot of, they're probably not going to be eating up nearly as much of Reform as, like, the Lib Dems and the Advanced, all the other sort of left-wing places are going to eat up Labor. And it would be very easy for Reform to go, hey, we have a huge chunk. Conservatives are also going to have, a decent-ish sized chunk. We'll do a coalition government and, therefore, it's going to be Reform. Now, I don't like that because that would probably water down Reform, but maybe not.
Is that the chance of there being a majority is, they reckon there's about a 52% chance that we'll have what we call a hung parliament, which means no one has a majority. So there's a good chance, according to the betting market, Reform will get the most seats, but they will not get enough seats to get a majority.
It's not really, again, it's a
there's
coin
the
flip.
possibility for like coalitions, and you could end up with this really complicated situation where Reform have more seats, but you would imagine, because Reform are quite unpopular, other than with Reform voters, that the Liberal Democrats, the Greens and the Scottish National Party might support Labour, which might give them more seats than Reform. But then the Conservatives, will they support Reform? Maybe they will, maybe they won't. So you could end up in this really complicated, split situation.
And that's probably, I would say that's more likely. I don't know if the Conservatives would just completely get rid of the levers of power. They'd be like, you know what? We can get a little bit of something by supporting Reform. Why wouldn't we? And, we can still, I don't know how they vote in the UK. I don't know if it's, like they each vote in their own way, the same way that we do like the House of Representatives. I don't know if that's the case. Or if it is just like a block voting thing.
Labour, the Lib Dems, the SNP, the Greens have more, and what the Conservatives do, and it could be phenomenally complicated, really. So basically, when we look at the betting market, what the betting market tells us is it's 50-50 Reform will get the most seats, but we don't know whether that will be enough for them to get a majority or to form a government. Okay, but that is the betting market. And obviously, as you know, because I talk about it a lot, I was a former trader and I was a very successful trader, and I still do trade now. When I look at the odds for anything, financial market, betting market, I'm always asking myself, what do I know that the betting market doesn't know? Could the betting market be wrong? And I've got a pretty good track record recently of correctly predicting politics, based really on just one thing which I know, which political forecasters generally don't know, which is that the economy and the economic situation and living standards are going to keep getting worse. This is based on the very simple understanding, which I speak about a lot on this channel, which is that falling.
I think most people are aware of that. I think most people understand that. I think most people get that. Certainly in the UK, I think most people are feeling that. And I think that's feeding into why reform is, growing. I think that's the case. So I think the idea that the current party that's going to eat all of this stuff, which is the Labour Party, I think Labour is going to get more unpopular. And I think the reform is going to get more popular. Now, it's also probably true like the Lib Dems are probably going to get more popular, as well as maybe the Green Party would also get more popular. But my guess is, you're going to be grabbing like the Lib Dems, the S&P, all of those sort of left wing parties are essentially just going to be cannibalizing labor. They're just going to be taking bites out of labor's share, and then reform is going to be probably doing the same thing with the Conservative Party, but also just bringing in more people, because people are going to be more hyped up. They're going to be more like, we have to vote. It's an existential crisis. We have to vote. We haven't voted before. And you're going to have something similar to like the Trump 2016 Brexit stuff, where you basically recruited a whole bunch of people who have like never voted before or haven't voted in the last 10 elections, blah 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 blah. And especially again, like with reform being where it is now, it's got the jump on all these other parties, like the Green Party or the Lib Dems. Maybe, in the election following this one, then maybe they'll have, enough steam to put up a fight. But, reform being where it's at, it's got momentum behind it. And that's, evidenced by the fact that, again, 50% voting odds. It's definitely the front runner for sure to get the most seats.
Living standards are linked to rapidly growing wealth inequality. Our political leaders are not doing anything about growing wealth.
I think living standards going down linked to inequality. This is not, again, he wants to make a causal argument here. It's because of inequality that living standards are going down. It's like living standards are going down because your economy is not doing as well. And that is also, yes, and that will contribute to inequality, because the people who are, on the margins, the people that are poor, are going to be hurt more by your economy not doing well than, the rich people who are, somewhat insulated and certainly can move their money around, can get better deals elsewhere. And therefore, the inequality would grow. That's true. But again, I'm like, I fundamentally disagree with his framing of inequality being causal here. I think it's absolutely, connected to it. It's a correlation, but it is not causational in this thing. It's a symptom of your economy not doing well.
Wealth inequality, which means that inequality will continue to grow and living standards will continue to fall. Understanding that.
Yeah, so like I agree with both of those things. I agree in the UK, both of those things will likely happen. Inequality will grow and living standards will fall. However, I think he's missing the reason for that, which is your economy is doing worse. You are going further and further towards getting closer and closer to a financial crisis, or what is it, a fiscal crisis, or both, wherein which, your living standards are going down because your currency is worth less because your economy is doing worse and you still have to spend money. So like you're putting yourself in a position where you have to end up printing money to pay off your loans, which means you get hyperinflation, which means, your money's worth less, blah, 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 blah. Keeps going, worse, worse, worse. That is also going to create more inequality, and it's also going to create worse living standards. But you're not mentioning that, Gary.
That is basically why I was able to predict the failure of Rishi Sunak, the failure of Keir Starmer, and the rising popularity of reform. That will keep happening. Living standards will keep falling, which means that by the time we get to the next election, and the next election here in this country is not due until 2029, by the time we get to the next election, living standards will be even worse than they are now.
I agree.
The economic situation will be worse,
Mm-hmm.
and this will be basically devastating for the popularity of Labour. And
Yes.
this is why I think you've seen reforms odds rising and rising and rising.
Yeah.
That is basically because the longer Labour are in power, whilst they do nothing about inequality, it is basically inevitable that living standards will fall, their popularity will fall, and that will increase.
Again, he's saying inequality, and he means inequality, but he's missing. It's actually like an economic problem. It's a much more systemic economic problem of your spending beyond your means. You're spending more money on these programs. You're not raising the money to pay for them. You're then having to borrow money, and then you're having to pay money on the interest, and you're having to pay more money on the interest, and blah, blah, blah. It's just, that's the cycle that's really fueling this crisis. That is real, and I do agree with him. It is real.
Reforms leads in polling, and that will increase reforms' likelihood of winning the next election. So I think because the economic worsening is not baked into these statistics, I think reform's chances of winning the next election are significantly higher
I would agree.
than the betting market thinks of 50%.
I would agree.
One other thing I should add to that is if we look historically, this economic worsening is going to make Labour more unpopular, but there is a really strong historical trend of, at times of economic weakness, especially prolonged economic weakness, really strong demand from the public for the far right, and also for leaders who give a sense of strength, strong seeming leaders, especially leaders who are sort of strong and on our side, and that is very much the vibe that Farage is going for, and at the moment, none of the other main parties, Conservatives or Labour, have really been able to do that. So as the economy weakens, really further economic weakness is terrible for Labour, and it's just great for reform. So I think they have much better chance than
I would agree.
the market suggests. So as that happens, as time passes, reforms, unless reform do something crazy or there's some massive scandal, which is definitely possible because I think there are some perhaps slightly rogue guys in their party. If that doesn't happen, I think reforms odds will go up and up and up and up and up.
I agree.
And then that will force the other parties to react, because as time passes, it will become more and more obvious that Labour are going to lose. The Conservatives are already in a very weak place. And as it becomes clear they're losing, they will have to move. So what will they do? So Labour are in an interesting situation. They have a budget coming up in November. Their economic situation is terrible. They're probably going to significantly raise taxes in the autumn.
That
They're
does
not
seem
going to
like
go
the case.
for popular taxes like the wealth tax, like taxes we support. They're probably going to go on taxes on the middle class. They might go on taxes on working people. I think it's going to be very difficult for them to do that and not take a big hit in popularity. Then in May, we will have local elections, including here in London, and I think they will do really, really badly.
I
So
agree.
I think that Labour are, firstly, they're already polling really badly. Keir Starmer, the leader, polls really badly.
Yeah, and so if we expand this out to not just UK politics, generally speaking, what happens in elections is people look at the people who are in power and they go, look, are they doing a good job or not? It's like a yes or no. It's a binary. I'm going to vote against them if they're doing a bad job. I'm going to go vote for them if they're not doing a bad job. That's it. That's how most people view large like national elections. That's what happens. There's some wiggle room in terms of like, okay, are there scandals? What about the guy in charge? Like those are factors, but they're much smaller than essentially just examining, my life or, the life of the country, that kind of stuff, and going like, okay, are we going in a good direction or a bad direction? Good direction, we stick. Bad direction, we change. And who we change to is a result of who's the biggest opponent, who's like the oppositional party. Obviously in the UK, they used to have a two-party Conservative Labour. I guess they technically had other parties, but I don't know if they were ever like in the office. I don't know if they were ever actually like for real things. Like we have like the Green Party, we have the Libertarian Party, we have independents and blah 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 blah, that type of stuff, but they're not really actual political contenders in national elections. I assumed that was the case with the UK, as they always had smaller secondary parties that were just like never popular enough to make any headway, and therefore none of them got elected. I could be wrong on that though. I'm not sure about that. Now, obviously, that is the case. So it seems to me that Labour, left wing, doing bad, doing bad, doing bad, doing bad. The opposition to them in the next election will be Reform, because they'll be the biggest party. So most of the people that are going, okay, look, Labour's doing crap. Who am I going to vote for? I'm not going to vote for them. I'm going to vote for against them. Who's against them? Reform. That would be my guess. Is that the amount of people that are going to get in here.
And they're about to go into two like really bad events, basically a really bad autumn budget in November and a really bad election in May. So basically, Labour are in a really bad situation, which is about to worsen. And what that means is the same thing that I've said for a long time, because I've always predicted this would happen to Labour. Keir Starmer's popularity would collapse, Labour's popularity would collapse, and Labour will be forced into a massive rebrand, which is going to change the leadership. And we can actually look at this in the betting markets as well. So,
okay.
If we flash it up.
I don't know if that's what they're going to try to do. But the other side of it is they're potentially at this point so unpopular that they're just going to be shellacked. They're just going to be like blown apart. Potentially, yeah, like in the next election very possibly is going to be the death of the Labour Party in the UK. Very, very possibly. It'll be their last, election as a party. Certainly as a major party. Very, very possibly. A lot of people are predicting that.
You can look at the betting market. When will Keir Starmer leave? And if you look at it now, at this point...
And I don't think them changing stuff up is going to make enough of a change.
It thinks that Keir Starmer will be lucky if he survives next year. And I think that there is a good chance that Keir Starmer will go next year. We don't know for sure it'll be next year. The betting market here reckons the chances of him surviving to the next election are about something like 16%, which is obviously very, very low.
Yeah.
So we can't say for certain, but I think I'm pretty confident. Keir Starmer will go, Keir Starmer will be replaced, and there'll be a new leader.
Yeah.
Now this... And again, I've said it for even since before Labour came in that this is what would happen. This is a massive opportunity for us because there will be a new Labour leader, probably next year. We don't know exactly when. And when that leader comes in, he or she will have to come in with some kind of brand, some kind of message, some kind of story, right? They will have to say, I am Mr. or Mrs. X.
They don't have to. They actually don't have to. I mean, this is the whole thing. Because you're not getting, again, correct me if I'm wrong if you're in the UK, they are not getting elected. They're getting chosen within the party. And they're just, put up there. They're not being elected by, like, popular demand and these things. So the odds that they're going to try to turn stuff around, and I mean, maybe they will. Maybe they'll try to turn stuff around and they'll go against this stuff. But it will... Yeah, but I mean, the current party leadership, likely what's going to happen is whoever replaces Keir Starmer is going to be very similar. Like, it's going to be in the same vein as Starmer. Because those are the people that are in power right now. They were able to retain it. They were able to keep it. They are, they have all the levers of power within their own party. So it seems very likely that the people to replace Starmer are going to be just like, his understudy or something like that. Maybe not, but that seems likely to me.
I stand for why my plan for the future of this country is Z. And in particular, because the economy continues to worsen, they will have to have a very clear vision and a very clear picture on what they were going to do for the economy. And when they come in, they will have to look around at all the different ideas about how we should manage the economy, and they will have to pick one, and they say, this is going to be the brand which identifies me. This is the kind of economic leader I am. This is the kind of economic future I want for the country. And this is going to be a massive, massive opportunity for me, for us, for this channel, because I think personally, if you are a new Labour leader coming in now and you want to win the election, the best economic strategy for you to pick is wealth taxes, is inequality, because really the simple question is, what the else is there?
Yeah, this is true. Now, I will say, this is not necessarily a terrible thing for me, in the sense that obviously it doesn't affect me whatsoever. I'm not living in the UK. So, you know, even if I had the wealth that they would want to tax and I lived in the UK, you know, blah, 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 blah. It would not solve any of these issues. I don't think the issues, you know, if they do employ this wealth tax stuff, it's not, all of the data that I'm seeing very much goes to show they're not going to actually solve any problems by taxing wealthy people. Now, are people stupid enough to believe the story? We're going to tax those greedy, wealthy people. We're going to tax the millionaires and billionaires. We're just going to tax the billionaires. And that's going to set stuff right. Maybe. But the thing is, they're not being elected. You're not revving people up. They can say that, and again, let's say it happens in the next year. That means in you know, another year or 2 or 3, if your wealth tax stuff doesn't do anything, and I absolutely don't think it will, you've got a ready-made excuse of like, well, we just didn't have enough time to work. But really, it's going to be because you're treating a symptom. You know, you're treating a sniffle when the patient has, you know, stage 4 stomach cancer. It's like, okay, yeah, you actually didn't even really solve the sniffle. You just kind of made it a little bit better for like a minute. And then the stage 4 stomach cancer, you know, kind of made the sniffle come back. It's kind of okay for me, though, because if you were to do that, it proves that the whole inequality, wealth tax, this type of stuff is worthless. It's not going to do anything. And I would say, to be perfectly honest, if you do it, you are literally just going to make the situation worse. Like 100% is just going to get worse. Trying to tax, you know, like property and wealth assets and these types of things, if you're going to do it and try to do like unrealized capital, like a capital gains tax, something like that, you're going to blow up your economy in like a day. It's going to be catastrophic. I hope it doesn't happen, because again, it will be legitimately catastrophic for the UK. So if you try to do something like property tax on, like, you know, houses in London held by non-doms or just anybody, you know, and they're vacant, okay, that's going to raise a little bit of revenue, but that's it. That's literally all it's going to do. It's maybe, yeah, it's like, you know, and maybe some of those people then can rent out their apartments, their, you know, their properties in London, and maybe that, you know, because it makes more properties available in the rental market, the rental prices go down. It's not going, you know, it's a band-aid. It's not really going to do that much. And therefore, Labor's still going to be more unpopular. It's going to get continually more and more unpopular. Now, it won't be as much of a, you know, falling off a cliff as it will be, you know, a steady decline. But I don't think, I mean, this is the thing where I'm like, look, the wealth tax is not going to solve your issues. So go ahead and try. It's not going to help. And therefore, if it doesn't help, people are going to go, oh, okay, well then in that case, we can just ignore this.
I don't think you can go running on what Labour and what Keir Starmer have been running on up till now, which is just, we are really sensible. We're going to try and sensible our way out of this. We're going to try and grow our way out of this, because it's really clear that that is the existing status quo. That's what governments have tried to do for 20 years.
They haven't, though. They've absolutely not done that. They have not tried to grow. They've said that, but they've not done that. They've not done the things that, would allow them to actually grow the economy. They have not cut taxes. They have not cut expenditure. They have not done the things that would actually do it. Now, obviously, they were never talking about cutting expenditure. I don't think. No, maybe. Who was it? I think so. Somebody did. I think currently one, like the chancellor, did say that they were going to cut something like that, but they were just laughed out. They were just immediately dogpiled. It didn't happen. Never even like got raised or something like that. So that's that's not going to happen. And again, that was never going to happen. And they're not doing any of the things that would actually allow them to grow the economy. If you want to grow the economy, if you want to grow, you cut taxes and you basically make it much more attractive to people to, invest in the country. That's not what they're doing.
It hasn't worked. It's not working. It's not.
Which is why it hasn't worked.
Working for Keir Starmer. So they have to do something new. We have to basically position ourselves that when the new Labour leader comes in, they look around the world of economic ideas and they say the one that is going to win us the next election is inequality, is wealth taxes, is that stuff supported by Gary's Economics and Gabriel Zuckman and patriotic millionaires. We have to be that voice. It's a massive opportunity for us. If they choose that, I think they can win the next election, which means I think Reform will lose the next election.
Now, if they choose that option, they could win the next election if the economic situation gets better. That is the presupposition there. He has to imagine that if you do the wealth tax, the economic situation will improve. That's not 100%. Even if inequality was the root of the problem, it is not a guarantee that a wealth tax will solve it. It's not a guarantee that the wealth tax will.
It's an obvious choice. I think it's an obvious choice if they want to win. I don't think Labour are great, so they might not make the right choice. There's a couple of other choices they can make. The other choice is to kind of double down on this Mr. Sensible, Keir Starmer, sensible Labour stuff. Grow. It sounds great. If you're a very boring person, I don't think it's going to win the public. It hasn't worked for Keir Starmer. No. It didn't work for Biden and Kamala. It would be very unoriginal. It'd be very
grow. Is that what they said? I don't remember Biden and Kamala saying grow. Grow the economy. I don't remember that. You know who I remember saying stuff like that? Drill baby drill. Who was that? Was that the Orange Man Bad? I think it was.
Inspiring. I think you're handing the battle over to the right. There is another choice they can make, which I think is a good chance the choice that they will make, which is to come in very anti-immigration. And that is because at the moment, the big salience is on immigration. They're worried about reform, and they could say, okay, well, we are going to go on the issue which everybody's talking about.
I guess, but I will say Keir Starmer did have that big, Nation of Strangers speech, which apparently now regrets. He regrets saying that. So I don't think that Labour could go anti-immigration. I don't think so. I don't think it's possible. I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think they'll do it. I guess it is an option, but I doubt it.
About which is immigration. If they do this, it brings up the issues that I spoke about in the video from 2 weeks ago about storytelling and salience and wedge issues, which is immigration is the issue upon which Labour is weak and Reform is strong. So if Labour chooses to make immigration its defining economic policy, is basically signing its own death warrant, because it basically guarantees that the entire economic debate between the new leadership coming in and the election.
Okay, because I would say that's actually not a bad strategy from them, in the sense that it does actually rob Reform of its wedge issue. It does rob Reform of its talking points if Labour actually is talking about it and doing it and saying the same stuff because they're in power. Now, it does hurt them if they don't do anything to make it better. It does hurt them then, because they're then admitting that reform's right, and if their solutions are ineffective, that means they've admitted they're wrong and they've demonstrated they can't solve the problem.
Will constantly be the issue about which Labour is weak and Reform are strong. So basically, I think when the new Labour leader comes in, he's going to have three choices.
So that's interesting. Yes, it's very interesting. I might actually have to watch that video because that's very interesting that he thinks that it's the death knell if they go anti-immigration. I would say it would save them if they were willing to do the things necessary to deal with immigration, because it just completely cuts the legs out from under reform. If they go in and say, all right, we're going to be, anti-immigration, we're going to deal with it, and we're going to deal with it doing all the shit reform said, well, then why would you vote for reform? That's the one thing they're campaigning on that's giving them all the stuff. You can just grab all the reform voters. Yeah. Now, would they do that? There's no shot that they would do it. Okay, like Biden, Biden, Kamala Harris eventually admitted, yeah, it's not great, but they didn't do anything about it. So I don't think there's any shot that they would do it. But tactically speaking, if I was, going to give them advice, I would say, yeah, that is what you should do. I don't think you're going to. Especially because I don't think a lot of people in your party would allow you to do it. But yeah, like if you wanted to win, that would be the way to do it.
Try and shift salience towards inequality, distribution, which is the issue on which Labour is strong. Well, it could try to become strong. We are strong, and if they try to use our voice, they could become strong and Reform is weak. Or it can continue on its sort of nothing boring path, which I think is a death warrant. Or it can choose to aggressively raise the salience upon which its opponent is strong, which I think is a failure as well. If they come to us, I think they can win. I hope they will. I'm going to try everything to make sure that they do. That's going to be our main priority here on this channel. Unfortunately, I think they probably won't, which means I think they'll probably end up choosing the immigration option, which means Reform will win the next election. Okay, so next is the Conservatives. So the Conservatives are still in there with a chance. The betting market does think they have a 12% chance of winning the next election, getting the most seats. Which is interesting, right? Because it's not zero. And at the moment, there's a lot of talk, Conservatives are dead. Their leader is also unpopular despite the Prime Minister's unpopularity. They're basically having their space aggressively usurped by Reform. And it looks like the party basically is at risk of disappearing. So why have they got their 12%? Okay, Reform, Conservatives also, again, we can look in the betting market and we can see betting market thinks the Conservatives will almost certainly change their leader as well next year. So we can see here that the Kemi Badenoch also less than 50% chance of surviving next year. They'll bring a new leader in. It looks like it will be probably Robert Jenrick. We're not sure. There's this interesting thing that happens in games, which is when you are losing a game, especially when you are losing a game quite aggressively, being kind of crazy becomes an optimal strategy.
Right.
And the reason for that is probably best understood by looking at it from the flip perspective, which is imagine I'm comfortably winning a game. I know as long as nothing crazy happens, the game will be predictable and I will win. So people who are winning want predictability, which means what people who are losing want is unpredictability. And I think as we get closer and closer to that election, at the moment, the Conservatives are kind of biding their time, thinking about the new leader, hoping that Reform do something crazy, it up somehow, get like a big scandal, and then Robert Jenrick is going to come in, basically, again, very hard on immigration, and hope that they can take the place that Reform lose by sort of fucking up. If Reform don't fuck it up, as we get closer to the election, the Conservatives will be more and more in a situation where they have to do something crazy.
Okay, I get what he's saying. Okay, I thought he was contradicting himself, saying like right now, the losing Conservative Party is acting predictably.
And really, I'm kind of interested to see what they do. You will probably see more and more and more kind of wild and erratic behaviour from the Conservatives as we approach the election, because they are kind of facing basically an existential threat. There's a good chance that they will disappear as a party. And that 12% is basically the 12% chance of, will the Tories do something crazy which is somehow popular? I think it's unlikely, but we'll see.
Yeah, I agree.
There's a couple of other parties that I should mention, right, which is the Liberal Democrats and the Greens. If I'm honest, I think the Liberal Democrat situation is relatively uninteresting.
Really? That's interesting, because I mean, the last person that I heard talking about this stuff was like, actually the Lib Dems are looking like the inheritors of Labor. Like, Labor's dead. It's going to be Lib Dems and Reform.
Democrats are, I don't dislike the Liberal Democrats. The Liberal Democrats are an interesting party because they compete, not exclusively, but almost exclusively with the Conservatives. And that is because their voters are largely richer people who would otherwise vote for Conservatives. Because the Conservatives did so badly in the last election, the Liberal Democrats won like almost all of their seats that they compete with the Conservatives.
Yeah, okay. So yeah, so that actually lines up with like where the current Republican Democrat lines are being drawn now, which is the Democrats are now like the party of the rich people. They're the party of the rich. They're the party of the establishment. They are, they're not the working class. They're not the populist. Whereas the Republicans are. The Republicans are very much drawing their people from, your working class backgrounds. It's like it's moving more into like a blue collar party, populist party, working class party, and with those same values, as opposed to the Democrats, which are very much now the sort of like the corporate party, the party of the elites, the rich, that stuff. Yeah. So it's interesting now that we're seeing basically the same thing happen in the UK, where the Conservatives going away, and instead of it being okay, the Conservatives are changing their party alignment, it's now that a new party's coming up, which is Reform, which is in that sort of right-wing populist, it's representing working class people, and the Liberal Dems are taking over the rich people, the elites. So that's interesting, which does bode well again for Reform.
I think they'll probably just do that again. The big space really at the moment is who fills the space that has been basically vacated by the enormous decrease in popularity of Labour. And that is where the Greens are quite interesting, which is...
And again, I mean, like, you can say that, but I mean, the issue of immigration is very similar to the idea of inequality. So instead of it being, hey, rich people are taking all of your shit, it's immigrants are taking all of your shit. And they're both kind of true, but the rich people taking all of your shit is not as much of as an existential threat, because it's like, okay, the rich people are taking all of my stuff, so, I can't own a home anymore, I have to rent it. Okay, but your country still remains the same, your identity is not being threatened, you're not being physically accosted, your neighborhood remains the same, everything remains relatively similar, as opposed to immigrants are taking all your stuff, which is also true, because I mean, they are hurting your jobs, they are doing this stuff, they are making, houses more expensive. So yeah, instead of owning a home, now you have to rent. But also, your neighborhoods are totally different. You're having to act differently around people. You're being, physically accosted, blah, 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 blah. All of this type of stuff's happening. So this is why Reform is doing better.
The Greens now have this new leader, Zach Polanski, who is making like quite a conscious pitch, which is, I'm going to fill that space vacated by Labour. Labour have been sort of moving slowly right as they sort of try and chase reform. Their popularity has collapsed. And then there's this space which comes up for like, well, we are going to be a party which is like broadly left. And I've constantly said, I think that there's really a space for a popular party which focuses the economy, focuses inequality, focus its wealth tax, and also aggressively focus on social media where there's a lot of political power. And this new guy, Zach Polanski in the Greens, seems to be, it almost feels like he's just been watching this channel and he's like, yeah, that's a good policy, I'm going to do that. So it's, I think the Greens have the potential to take a huge amount of seats because of the massive unpopularity of Labour. They're like an obvious guys who can fill that gap. The new leader, Zach Polanski, talks about 30 to 40 seats, which would be enormous for the Greens, who have never had more than 4 seats, which is what they won last election.
Okay.
It's optimistic, but I think it's possible for the reason that I highlighted before, which is Labour's popularity is going to tank. The risk to the Greens is basically the thing that we want, which is if the Greens manage to get popularity on this idea of basically wealth tax and inequality, the new leader of Labour
they go into it,
try to
just steals it.
That space, in which case it would really smash the Greens. But I mean, if what you want is wealth taxes and inequality, then what you kind of really want is for the Greens to do this interesting thing
where they just dissolve their party and, like, you know, support Labour. Yeah.
They push a policy with the hope that Labour adopt it, which would lead to the Greens losing. It's this really interesting situation the Greens are in, which is the best thing they can do for the country is kind of intentionally lose.
Yeah.
Because they...
It's normal political stuff. Like, I mean, this is why you have the Democratic National Convention, or not the DNC. Technically, yes, okay, it is. This does happen at the DNC, but, you know, it's why you have like a primary election. It's so that Pete Buttigieg can come in and grab up support for a whole bunch of people that, you know, he specifically appeals to. He's never going to be president. Like, Pete Buttigieg was never going to be president. Same thing with like a bunch of the other people who were campaigning for the Democrat candidate. They were never going to be president. What they were doing was they're trying to basically help themselves out by grabbing up a bunch of people and then saying, hey, all of you people go support Joe Biden. That's why they did it the way they did it. That's you know, it's the political horse trading stuff. That's why they did it. So it's actually, yeah, you're right. It's very interesting, but it's totally normal. Now, I mean, I guess in the UK, maybe they don't have a similar thing, but obviously in the US, yeah, I mean, we see this like every 4 years.
They want to drag Labour back into a kind of sensible policy space. And this is, what I think is really interesting here is that the Greens are now in the kind of situation that Nigel Farage was in for like the last 20 years. So Nigel Farage, some people might not know, he's the leader of the Reform Party, and before Reform he was leader of a party called UKIP. And he only won his first seat in Parliament last year in 2024.
Right.
But despite that, Nigel Farage is almost single-handedly the man responsible for Brexit. And what that means is because he has been doing basically exactly what I suggested the Greens need to do, which is he's constantly been forcing the Conservatives to come towards his direction without ever winning any seats, because he can keep saying, well, I'm going to win 4 million, 5 million votes, and you're going to lose the election unless you come across. And I think Farage shows what I would like sort of the Greens and Green supporters to realise, which is under our kind of stupid political system where every election is an election where only 2 parties can't win, as a smaller party...
Did he say only 2 parties can't win?
It is impossible for you to win, but it is possible for you to dominate the political...
Only 2 parties can win. I guess is okay, because you're... I guess because you're talking about, like, okay, it will be, you've got a party, you got your main party, and then you've got your opposition party? I mean, again, I don't know the UK political system well enough, but I think that lines up.
Narrative by influencing the main political parties. And this brings me to the next point I want to make, which is, I think the only way, really, that I can see Reform not winning this election is... either Labour come across under their new leadership and they adopt inequality as their policy message, or...
I don't think that would help, but okay.
The Greens are so successful that they bring Labour across. And the truth is, I don't think either of those things are likely to happen.
I agree.
Which means that I basically think Reform are probably going to win the next election. But if you do want it to happen, because I know that a lot of my viewers will probably not want reform to win the next election. If you do want that to happen, if you want reform not to win the next election, what do you do? So I was speaking to my brother this week, and he doesn't like me mentioning him on the channel, so probably won't be happy. But he said something.
Fuck him.
He's an interesting guy, my brother.
Oh, is he?
He said something interesting, which I was speaking to him about. Do you think reform will win the next election? And he agreed with me. He was probably yes. And I was like, do you think there's any way that reform could be stopped? And he just said one line, which was, aggressive and relentless pursuit of unity and common ground. That's all that he said, which is the kind of thing that he says. And in a sense, that's what I've just said, which is basically, unless the Greens and Labour, the party of the left and the party of the centre, both move into this space of focus on the economy, focus on inequality, deal with taxation, then reform will win the election. And at this point, I should probably also mention...
I completely disagree. Your taxes are not going to help.
There is obviously a third party. There's the new party, which doesn't have a name yet, which is led by Corbyn and Sultana. They're behind wealth taxes as well, right?
Sure.
These guys have also popped up. The truth is...
Yeah, and this is the whole point. There are way more emerging left-wing parties than there are right-wing parties. And the whole like unity stuff is there's a lot to be said for it. You want to build a coalition. It's more difficult to build a coalition with more parts. Usually that's the case. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's not. Because each of the smaller coalitions are like, well, we can't really do anything. But it also does mean that, you need all of them. So the last one you go to has a ton of, what do you call it? Leverage. And, each one of them knows that. So, they each have a bunch more leverage on you, as opposed to if the reform would need the conservatives for a coalition thing, they can go, hey, look, we need you. It's just one, they just have to make one deal, as opposed to the other side has to make, 5 deals. And it's also, a reflection of the fact that, the left is much more splintered in the UK than the right.
We are going into the next election.
And the reason for that splintering is partly ideological, but also partly because there are so many different people who want power. Like, isn't Jeremy Corbyn, isn't he basically just a Green Party? Doesn't he just ideologically align almost 100% with the Green Party? I think he does. I could be wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think he is. So the reason he's making his own party is because he wants to be the head of that party. He wouldn't be the head of the Green Party. So he's like, all right, well then, fuck the Green Party. He wants political power.
Reform will be strong favourites. And really, whether reform win or not will be decided by whether these different groups of people, these different groups of voters are able to do, as my brother said, he's going to hate me from keeping on mentioning him, aggressive and relentless pursuit of unity and common ground. It's as simple as that, basically. We have, especially in this country, a political system which aggressively punishes division. Aggressively punishes division. Yep. What will probably happen in the next election is that...
And this is why it's probably even more likely that reform will win, because the right wing is less divided than the left wing.
Reform will win an overall majority with the smallest ever number of votes that any party has ever won an overall majority. And that will be simply because the people and the politicians in this country who do not support reform are divided. We have a political system, first past the post, which, as an aside, I think is a stupid political system. Maybe I'll talk a video about it one time.
Sure.
That voting system, that political system, aggressively punishes division. So whether reform win or not is basically a question of, will the centre and will the left be able to be aggressive and relentless in their pursuit of common ground? And I would love for them to unite on the issues which they have in common, which I would like to believe are fixing the economy, dealing with inequality, dealing with an unfair taxation system. In reality, I don't think these various groups are going to be able to do that.
No.
And unfortunately, that's just simply because there's a lot of bad blood and a lot of antipathy between the centre and the left, and that goes in both directions. If they are able to be sensible, get their heads together, focus on the message that will win, which is inequality, distribution, the economy, focus aggressively on their common ground, try to avoid bickering and raising the salience of their differences, try to avoid raising...
Now here's the thing, there's no reason to say that the reform cannot also focus on the economy. They can attack it from, you know, the way in which I'm attacking it, which is to say, you know, the inequality that you're experiencing is yes, a factor, you know, of immigration. That's definitely happening. It's also a factor of, you know, we're not growing our economy enough. We're not giving you the economic freedom that you want. Everything is, you know, super authoritarian. How many forms and stuff do you have to go to start a business? How much bureaucracy do you have to go through? How much do you have to deal with for all this kind of stuff? We can go back to this stuff where, you know, we had a good, growing, booming economy where we were doing well. We can get rid of, you know, all the immigrants who are, you know, taking up your housing spots and then also, you know, taking up your jobs. And then we can also grow the economy so that, you know, you're able to be in charge of your own destiny. Yeah, they can do the same thing. I'll be honest, I do find that a more, certainly it's more optimistic. It's a more optimistic talking point. But it doesn't have this sort of like venomous, vitriolic, vengeance, retributive stuff of like those evil capitalist billionaires are stealing all your shit that the wealth tax stuff does. So, yeah.
The salience of their opponents, then they can win. If they're divided, they will lose. Okay, so that's my prediction. I do think Reform will win the next election. I think that will be clearer as time goes on. Really, the big dice that...
All right, so that we'll end on that. I've got 20 more minutes of this video. With the amount that I'm yapping over it, it's going to be way later than the time we need to cut off for. So we'll potentially start up with this next time, and then we can get into the Roy Sutherland stuff maybe. Or we can get into this final thing, which I know is like a long while ago, but I do want to get into this. I do want to watch this on stream at some point. And you know what? If we have to cut it up and we can watch it over different streams, that's fine too. That's actually okay too. Okay, yeah, let's do that.